Hey, all you beautiful folks out there. Welcome to episode number 40. This is your host, Morgan. Today I'm joined by Mr. Brian Gray, a man of many, many talents. This guy is a firefighter, artist, hunter, outdoorsman, amateur taxidermist, father, and husband, and he joins us on the podcast talking all things hunting in New Mexico. This is something near and dear to my heart. I've always wanted to go hunting. Probably could have in different iterations of situations that I went through in my life, but just never got to do it. So I just thought I'd try to reach out to Brian and see if he couldn't mentor me a little bit. Brian is the co-founder of Spot2Stalk. These guys have a great hunting group on Facebook and Instagram, as well as the group's podcast called On the Game Trail. That's On the Game Trail podcast, which you can find anywhere you get podcasts, including iTunes, Google, iHeart, Spotify, you name it. Brian and his co-founders of Spot2Stalk are also pro staff for the worldwide hunting brand Onca Gear. That's ONCA Gear. These guys are a Spanish-based, like literally from Spain, hunting outfitter, and somehow in their spare time they run a group called NM Trail Cams. We dish on all things hunting, from all types of animals you can encounter and hunt in New Mexico, trapping, best practices, how to scout, fitness for hunting. We talk about hunting do's and don'ts, skinning without gutting. On and on and on. This is probably my longest podcast I've ever done. It comes in at like 2 hours, but it is literally packed full of wicked little nuggets of hunting advice that Brian dropped left and right. So if you've ever had a hankering to learn about hunting, just didn't have anybody to kind of mentor you in that way, check out their Facebook page. That's Spot2Stalk, and that's facebook.com/spot2 and then the word stock all together. They're also on Instagram at Spot2Stalk, and then they have a website, spot2stalk.com, where you can also find the On the Game Trail podcast, which these guys put out. I think it's every Monday. It might be every 2 weeks, but I think he was saying in the podcast that it's every Monday. And then of course you can find Onca Gear on there as well, ONCA Gear. That's on Facebook and Insta, and then I believe that their Facebook group for NM Trail Cams is just NM Trail Cams all together. We tried to put in for a hunt live on this with me like sitting there in front of the computer to kind of walk you guys through that, because we also did a Facebook live feed with this podcast. It didn't pan out. I did put in, and you guys are getting this podcast well after a month since it was actually recorded. So I put in for an elk, and I did not draw. Super sad, but it's a lottery system, so what can you do? But I am able to go hunt small game, which again I've never really been licensed to do that. The most I've ever had is a fishing license. So I'm gonna start messing with some of that, see if I can't pull back some game from this good green earth. Thank you guys for listening. As always, I really appreciate you, and I hope that this podcast helps motivate to get some asses out of seats, get outside and do something. If you like what I'm doing here on the podcast, you can always reach out to support us at patreon.com/APOB media. Really, really appreciate the support. Looking at you, Ian Oliver. Appreciate you. All my family and friends that have always been there to support me, pushing the envelope on what I can do as a one-man show artiste for a podcast. If you want to check out anything that A Perch of Birds is doing, we're still on Facebook, that good old Facebook, facebook.com/APOB media. We're on Instagram at A Perch of Birds media. It's the only one that I think it was either taken or something. And then Twitter, same thing. And then of course, aperchofbirds.com. I appreciate the hell out of your faces, and keep up the pursuit of greatness. Cheers. So welcome to a Perch of Birds podcast. I got Mr. Brian Gray here. He's a New Mexico native, right?
That's correct.
New Mexico native. Okay, I don't know. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, no, I've been here my whole life.
Okay, so he's an amateur taxidermist, a firefighter by trade. He's a husband and a father to a beautiful family. And what Brian is passionate about, besides art, because you're a very talented artist.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I'm going to put some of that artwork up on the podcast page once I'm done here. Kind of can't do all the things at once. But you're also an outdoorsman and you're a hunter. So
correct.
All these things that you do, the premise of the podcast today for me was basically to try to get into your mind as an amateur, because I do not hunt. I do podcast though, and basically try to
learn the way of hunting, and then we're also going to sign me up for a hunt or put my name in the hat for a hunt for New Mexico. So I guess the first thing I'd like to ask you is, how did you get into hunting? What was like the thing that got that sparked?
Well, that's a tough question there. But my dad and my grandparents, on my dad's side, my grandpa, he was an avid hunter. On my mom's side, my grandpa, he was an avid fisherman. So I guess I got best of both worlds, from both sides of the family there. And my dad, he would always take us fishing, and went on my first hunt with my dad. He put us in for a draw for deer, not thinking that we were going to draw, and we ended up drawing the hunt. So I was so excited, but he couldn't get off work, of course, that's what he said, and he needs to take us. So my very first deer, one of my good friends growing up, his dad was a big time hunter. Okay. And I ended up putting in Colorado, actually, and went out of state.
So you were here and you put in for Colorado?
Put in for Colorado. Okay. And got drawn and ended up killing my first deer out there in Colorado. And ever since then, I've been hooked.
Okay. And you were how oldish?
I want to say I was, like 12. No, maybe like 13, 14 years old.
Okay. So you were young.
Yeah.
So when you broke out doing that was you pulling the trigger to actually shoot the animal?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I could remember it like it was yesterday. I spotted that buck up on top of a hill, and I was smacking the seat because we're just driving down the road. I was like, there's a deer, And they stopped the truck, and they look up, and they're like, well, he saw it, let's go ahead and let him shoot it. Yeah. So, of course, I'm in the back seat, and I could not open the door. It was like it was stuck, I'm sitting there, boom, boom. So the door finally pops open, and loud bang. Oh, and so I was like, oh man, there goes that deer. So I look up, and Buck was still standing there, and he was literally on top of this ridge, and I'm down in the bottom. So I had to get off the road, do the legal hunting and stuff like that. Sure. I walked in there, and I was looking for the deer through the scope, and I could not see it. I was like, what the heck? Where is he? And then all of a sudden I see this big brown blur in my crosshairs. Oh, wow. And I was like, oh, that's the deer. So, and I'm young, so I'm not really, experienced shooting or anything like that. So I went to squeeze the trigger, but I jerked it. So the whole rifle goes up, and I never pulled the trigger. So once it came back down, those crosshairs hit, and I squeezed, and I couldn't see anything. Wow. I just turned around and look at those guys, and they're like, dude, that was a heck of a shot.
Really?
I got him? And they're like, yeah, you got him. So I book it up this hill, fall in a little creek, so excited, run up the hill. I'm looking, I was like, I don't see the deer. Where's he at? Yeah. And I ran past him and ran up the hill, because when I shot him, he dropped and he slid down, Damn. So I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, so excited.
Right. He's so camouflaged. He blended in even once he hit the ground.
Yeah. And then, of course, they make me get in there and gut the animal and do all that kind of stuff. And he set me up, because you're on a hill and you have the guts, the intestines, right? But then you have that diaphragm, which separates the lungs, heart, and all that from the intestines. Okay. So when I shot him, I made that perfect shot and just dropped him. So everything was held inside that diaphragm. Nice. So he told me, he's like, all right, you got to pop through that. The minute I popped through that, all that just came gushing down and just covered me. I was like, dude, you can't believe that.
It didn't make you sick or nothing?
It didn't make me sick, no. Cool. Because you're in the moment, you're so excited. But
that probably means that you're like, you were destined for this shit,
Right? It was awesome, so everybody will always remember their first hunt.
Okay. Well,
and their first harvest.
Well, that's kind of like my thing is, I've always wanted to do it, but just in the way it worked out, my mother and I moved here from Kansas. Even though I was born here, we moved there. Long story short, we came here and it's just her and I. So I've never had anybody to take me, you know what I mean? And I was like, man, one day, right? And one day turned into, I'm fucking 30 now. So I'm like,
hey, it's never too late.
Yeah, never too late. So, and New Mexico is nothing but outdoors and nothing but, big game, big country. So I felt like, I got to have a good mentor. So I figured I'd reach out to you, and that's why I brought you on, man.
Well, we'll get you signed up, and hopefully you draw, and then I get to tell my wife I get to go on a hunt with you.
Right here. It's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. So in New Mexico, comparatively, you just said you went to Colorado. How is like the hunting here? Is it solid? Like, I mean, is this a place people want to come to hunt?
A lot of people come from out of state to hunt. And here in New Mexico, we have a wide variety of game species here to be able to hunt. You know, we have exotics.
Okay.
Well, we're brought in years ago, like in the 60s and stuff like that. You know, we have Oryx, Aoudad, which is barberry. Yeah, barberry sheep.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ibex. We have Himalayan tar, which it's a draw hunt on the reservation, but if you could find them just free roaming, you don't need a license to hunt them.
Really?
They're an invasive species, so if you see one, you could actually just shoot it, but they're very hard to come around.
So what makes that Himalayan, what'd you say?
Himalayan tar.
Himalayan tar. What makes that invasive compared to ones that you say are exotics that were brought here, like an Ibex? Because I'm sure that wasn't native.
Those ones are more controlled. I guess the Himalayan tar wasn't actually brought in by the state.
Okay.
It was somebody else had them and had like a little farm, but had them on there and they escaped. So they started breeding on their own.
So then, and they're just more, are they more voracious with their appetite or something like that? Or do they
I'm not too sure. I really don't know much about the Himalayan tars because I wish I could go out and find them and hunt them.
Yeah.
You know, but.
Have you ever eaten one? Like
never.
Okay.
So I'm clueless on those. I've never had the barberry sheep or Ibex.
Okay.
But Oryx, by far the top of the list.
Sure. So everybody listening, I'm going to tell you guys a fun story about Brian. So I was working, so I used to work for his wife, right? And Amber's awesome. And so she was like making a joke one day. She's like, "Hey, my husband's got something for you outside." I was like, "What do you mean?" We used to work at a cell phone store. So I go outside and I walk out the front door and there was a car passing between where he was parked and me because it's like in a little strip mall. And he's like, as soon as the car passes, "Hey, catch," he tells me, and he throws this thing and I catch it. And it was a sack of nuts. And that was Oryx, right? It was Oryx nuts?
Believe,
yeah. So you're an amateur taxidermist also.
Right.
You have so many hats. We got to keep swapping them out as we go here.
Yeah.
But I remember you showing me that, and then you tell me about Oryx. So when it comes to Oryx, is that like something that is like a prize to capture? I think you said you hit that one, right? By accident.
We did not hit it.
Okay.
We were going down on my daughter's deer hunt.
Okay.
Going out, you know, into the mountains. We never made it because the Oryx was hit by a car and they flagged us down, waved us, you know, and like, "Hey, you guys have a weapon? Hit this Oryx. It's still alive, blah, blah, blah." You know?
Wow. So it's fresh.
It was fresh. It was still alive. You know, I ended up putting it out, you know, putting out of its misery. It was, you know, the hips were shattered, stuff like that. We ended up contacting Game and Fish and bought a roadkill tag. And I loaded that sucker up in the truck, brought it home, and had everybody waiting here. So we processed it, and it was good.
Yeah. So that's like something that if I was an out-of-stater, I would maybe be coming for an Oryx. Like that would be something to target if they were coming in from out of state.
Yeah, they do target the Oryx. They're mainly on range, on the White Sands Mist Range. So if you do draw, that's a once in a lifetime hunt.
Oh wow.
So if you do draw that, you have to show up, and then you have to. So you pay. I think it's $160 for a resident. I don't know what it is for a non-resident, the price, because I'd never look. I'm not a non-resident.
Sure.
You know?
Right.
But once you get on range, you actually have to pay an access fee.
Okay.
To be able to access the range. But there's the real sticklers on range, you know. So it's like the Indy 500. You know, once they say go, everybody's just hauling butt onto the range, you know, to find a spot, shoot an
There's only
animal.
A certain amount of time that's open.
Right.
What you're saying. Okay.
So and I think that hunt's only 2 days, or it might be 3 days tops, and that's it. Damn. So if you shoot one, you can't take pictures, you can't do anything. You have to, I believe you could only gut your animal, then you got to load it in your vehicle and then drive it out.
And go Splitsville.
Before you could take any pictures.
Is it because it's a government institution or government area or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. There's so much stuff on there. They don't want pictures.
Sure. And for you guys listening that may not know, White Sands, you just look it up. I mean, Google New Mexico White Sands Missile Range. It's still called the Missile Range, but it's essentially government owned. And there's a few movies that I'm sure you guys have seen that you wouldn't even realize. I think The Gamer was one of them. But they show show like pretty extensive shots within that area, but that's all controlled, of course, you know, in post or whatever. So I can understand what you're saying about that, because I work in a government entity myself where pictures, phones, none of that stuff's allowed.
Right.
And I could imagine them freaking out, because like that's where they test like cutting edge stuff. You know, you can't even go there as a tourist except for like 2 or 3 days a year, right? Something like that.
To be honest, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, it's like a big deal. People go and get like a jar of sand.
It's too creepy. You're like,
So okay, so we covered kind of like what there is for animals in a sense, but I guess the thing I've always wondered, just again as an amateur, is when it comes to like carnivores, is that something that people want to hunt? I've always thought that carnivores would be
people want to hunt the Oryx, they want to hunt those the Ibex.
Okay,
so they call it the Rock.
Okay,
it's down in the Florida mountains, and the terrain there is just insane. And those Ibex are a goat.
Okay,
so they walk on sheer cliffs.
So they're like a smaller game.
They're small.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, their horns kind of curve back.
Okay, yeah, I've seen those.
Those things, I mean, if you shoot one, a lot of people, they shoot it and they'll fall and they can't get to them.
Damn.
So they actually call in rock climbers to come in, and they'll go down and grab their game.
You imagine that kind of a job, bro? That would be gangster.
That would be awesome. You know, but that's one of my goals I wanted to put in this year for bow hunt for Ibex, because it's like the top thing what you could actually shoot with your bow, because they're just so challenging.
Sure.
You know? But New Mexico is more known for their elk.
Okay.
People always want to come to New Mexico to hunt elk.
Okay. So, and you kind of touched on a subject I wanted to cover a little bit more in detail, but I want to cover the, you know, with the bow, but I want to get to that in a second. So the like bear and cougar and shit like that?
Cougar, we have that here.
Okay.
So
why would I want an elk over a bear or a cougar? Or is it really just
elk? It just being around an elk, a bull elk is just, it's amazing. There's nothing like it, especially when they're in the rut and you hear them bugling and communicating and talking.
And rut's the mating season, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you're able to get a bull in, you know, 15 yards, 5 yards, whatever, and they're just bugling and they're in the rut, they're breeding, you can smell them. So you know, you're like, oh yeah, the elk are here. And then all of a sudden they're right there, they're on you, and they're just an amazing animal. I don't know. I get so excited. I'm like, oh, I love elk, you know?
Right. Well,
and being able to hunt them is just, it's awesome, especially with the bow. Sure.
And then you get a ton of meat compared to like an Ibex.
You could get, oh man, you could 500-600 pounds of meat depending on the size of bull, you know? It's a lot. A bull, whenever, like I've shot a couple bulls, each one will last the family about a year.
Wow. That's amazing.
And we eat it every single day.
And that's like one of the racks that you have here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have my very first one is the one that has the head on it. That's a 5x5. And then the other one, the bigger one, that's a 6x6. That's scored a 350. And it's just antler mounted because I want to get a shoulder mount. They're expensive. So
I'm going to get a picture of that for you guys. I'm going to show you guys on Facebook, if anybody's watching out there on the interwebs. He's got an amazing mount over here, because you do what's considered to be a European mount? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where the
European
no skin.
mounts. Right.
Okay.
It's just the skull. So you're cleaning the skull up and making sure all the meat, flesh, all that stuff is off. It's just bare bone.
Oh, dude, I got so many goddamn questions. Okay, so the with a bear, if I hunt a bear weight what? We usually have black bears here.
We have black bears here.
Okay, yeah. And then do we have blonde bears?
They're cinnamon bears. We have blonde bears, but they're all black bear.
Okay, that's like the species.
Yeah, it's just their pigment in their fur and stuff like that,
sure,
which is different. So you might be out there in the wild and you're like, oh my gosh, I saw a brown bear. It's a black bear.
Okay.
It's just, we call them like a cinnamon bear or blonde bear, you know, because their hide, it's not solid black.
Okay. And if you were to hunt one of those, does that meat taste good? I hear it's fatty and shit.
A lot of people, you know, they frown on it, you know, they're like, oh man, bear tastes like crap. You know, we had bear, one of my buddies shot one a few years back. He shot at the beginning of the season, which was August. And so it had barely any fat on him. And, are we good?
No, we're fine. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
just double checking, making sure.
Yeah, I'll stop this thing.
But
it's finicky.
It was in August, and so the bear had barely any fat on him.
Yeah.
And after he shot him, you know, we did our stuff. We skinned him, you know, corded them up and packed them out. We took them to the meat processor, I think he turned it a majority into like breakfast sausage.
Okay.
And we fed it to a ton of people at work.
Okay.
We're just cook breakfast, and
I'd eat some bears. See, that's like one of those things to me that's foreign enough. You know what I mean? Where it's like, what is that?
Nobody knew. Nobody had a clue of what it was. And it was great. It was great tasting. You couldn't tell. The only scary thing about bear is a lot of bears have triagnosis. It's because they're eating a lot of dead animals.
Okay.
So it's just a bacteria type stuff what you do not want to get.
Okay.
So if you're going to eat bear, just make sure that you cook it completely. So you think it's done, just cook it more.
Yeah.
Be like, oh yeah, that's done. Well, just make sure you cook it more. So a lot of people make like stew and stuff like that out of it. But we just ground the whole thing and we just mix it in with like chili or breakfast burritos. That
helps kill off some
like
of the triagnosis, the chili.
Yeah. So when you're cooking ground meat, it's a lot easier to cook all the way through.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then you just like, okay, well, let me cook it a little bit more. It's done, but let me go ahead and burn it a little bit, and it. And this is purely
because it's a carnivore is the deal there. Okay. So, I mean, do they hunt shit like cougars and stuff like that? Or I guess is a cougar and a mountain lion the same thing? I want to get that cleared up. Am I saying the same thing when I say cougar and mountain lion? Okay. Okay.
And they're the same thing.
Okay. So I mean, do people eat mountain lions?
I heard that people do. I never have.
Okay.
I mean, I don't see why not. If you're going to go out and hunt something,
if you're a hunter,
sure, then shoot it to eat it.
Right.
Now if I shot, don't get me wrong, I want to shoot a mountain lion.
Yeah.
I that's just like, oh yeah, those things are it's a giant cat.
Right.
And the things are creepy looking.
I'm sure you heard about the hiker in Colorado.
Yeah.
That took down he took down, for you guys listening, if you don't know, there was this guy that got hunted because these things are pure carnivores. They don't eat anything else but meat. But they basically, he was being stalked while he was jogging, and it tried to pounce on him, or it did. And I guess he kung fu'd this thing to the ground and killed it with his bare hands. Which is saying something.
He got tore up a little bit, but yeah, it's amazing. You're like, you could do it. And a lot of people have called in mountain lions while they're out like turkey hunting.
Okay.
So they're out in the forest, they're sitting there just calling in turkey, and they'll actually call in a mountain lion.
Oh, you're saying like with a turkey caller?
Yeah.
Like
a diaphragm call, or, slate calls, stuff like that. There's so many different calls,
Yeah.
But they've actually called in the mountain lion because if they're in the area and they hear it, they're going to head over there.
Because you want to sound like a female, right, to a male turkey.
Yeah. Well, if you're like turkey, you could sound like a female. You could sound like a male.
Okay.
Same thing with elk.
Okay.
You have your bull calls, you have your cow calls.
Sure.
So on and so forth. So you have that variety. So you're sounding like you're a herd or a flock.
Right. A flock of turkeys.
A flock of turkeys.
So is fowl a big thing being hunted down here? I know that I always see along the Rio Grande that there's always duck blinds that people like kind of set up, and you can find them drifting down the decoys floating down the river sometimes.
And you could call them in too.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a call for everything.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not too big of a waterfowl.
Okay.
I've done it before in the past and I loved it. It was fun, but I'm not very good at it.
You need dogs for that? I was going to say you need ducks to get ducks. But
it's easier.
Okay.
It's easier to have a dog what is trained in retrieving, and a lot of people use labs and stuff like that. But that way you shoot one and it falls out, and you just send your dog out there to go get it. That way you don't have to go swimming.
Lands in a moving river. I could see that being a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Especially for some, I don't want to say anything bad here, but somebody that's not in shape, let's just say, that would be bad because they wouldn't be able to get to it. So then, okay, so that's kind of the various methods or various animals that you would go after. What about trapping? Is that
trapping's big here in New Mexico? I don't do any trapping. I have a lot of buddies who do.
Okay.
And of course, you have to get your trapper's tag. You have to have all your traps marked with your names or your trapper ID number.
Okay.
So if Game and Fish is out there or somebody reports it, oh my gosh, there's a coyote stuck in the trap, in which it happens.
Yeah. Or a human, God forbid.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times the traps, they catch domestic animals.
Okay.
People are walking down like the river or whatever, and they let their dogs just run.
Oh, and they get
nailed. That dog smells it. They go over there and they get trapped.
Oh, man.
And it's a bummer, but it happens. So when people are out there, you got to watch it. That's why they always say keep your dogs on a leash, So especially during the trapping season, that's what you want to watch for. But There's only certain areas on the river what are allowed to trap.
Okay.
From what I understand, I don't quote me on it, but I'm not a trapper. So, but if you're out in the mountains and stuff like that, Game and Fish goes out and they see a trap or a marking or whatever, or something was caught and somebody's complaining, they'll look in that ID.
Okay.
And know who that trap belongs to. So they can contact you, because a trap needs to be checked, I want to say, every 24 hours.
Huh.
So you can't just leave it for a week and not go back and check it.
You wouldn't want to, though, because if you killed something and it sat for a week, it would probably...
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is the trap, they're caught by the paw.
Okay.
And then when you go out there, you have this animal, which is, it's alive and it's pissed off because it's trapped. So they have to dispatch it, technically,
right? Right.
Or shoot it, whatever, and they usually use like a 22, or they call it what is it? It's like a choking tool. But it's a noose. What they go over there, and it's for hides. Okay. So whenever you're trapping, if you shoot it, now you punctured a hole in it, and now the value of that hide has gone down.
This makes sense. So because there's people that actually make money off of the hides,
right? And a lot of people, that's all they do. They just trap all year long.
How much is like a hide worth?
It depends on what the market's doing.
Okay.
So a coyote could go from $30 to $80.
Wow.
The bobcat could be $300 to $800. Depending on the hide, depending on how big it is, the thickness,
how well it's preserved too.
Exactly. Sure. Okay. There's a big part, and now I mean that's all with fur buyers and stuff like that. Yeah. They really pick apart.
Well, I've watched some of those shows on Discovery. Yeah, and those guys up north, they'll get up in the polar circle, and that's all they do. They'll just set traps and do circles all day, checking the traps to grab those small game, and they essentially make enough to like go and make their years or 6 months worth of salary off of that. That shit's insane to me, because I mean, what a lifestyle, to be able to live for one like that, because those guys will fly out there, land, and then they'll do their thing. But I didn't know that was something that we're doing in New Mexico. That's really cool. So you're saying that trapping is something big, and I saw, because I looked at the hunting guide that you've got here for the 2019-2020. Yeah. And it's basically saying that like a price scale, and it looks like trapping, the pricing to get a trapping license is more expensive, and I would think it's because you could essentially make money off of that, right?
You can make money. I don't know, really. I mean, some of the prices what Game and Fish have on their animals is kind of weird. You know, it's just like Javelina. It's $60 to hunt a pig,
right? When
it's $47 to hunt a deer, and you're like, a deer's bigger than a pig. Why would you charge more for a pig? And I never put in because I don't want to spend $60 on a pig. Right. I don't think it's worth it.
And so I thought, and maybe I'm tangenting a bit here, but I would think that Javelina is an invasive species, right?
Javelina is not.
Is not. Okay.
So Javelina is here. It's part of it. It's, so we have feral hogs.
Okay.
Feral hogs is an invasive species.
Comparatively to a Javelina.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're hunting, you have to know the difference between a feral pig and a Javelina.
Okay.
So a Javelina are smaller. They have a white collar on them. A feral pig they're bigger. They have the bigger floppy ears. They're different colors, or spotted, or so on and so forth.
Because a typical pig that you would see that's pink is a pig that's domesticated, but a feral pig is one of those pink pigs that got out.
Yep.
Or was born outside of a domestic situation, and they just get big. So it's like big floppy eared pink guy, but he's just dark and
and gnarly looking. I mean, those things get big out there. I've seen a few of them out there in the wild, and I thought it was a bear running through the bushes until it hit the 2-track. Yeah. And it stretched across from one end to the other. And we're like, holy crap, man, that thing's huge.
And none of those, so you're saying that either one of those pigs, you'd have to have a license?
Not for the feral.
Not for the feral. Okay. No. That's interesting.
Feral hogs, you could go out and shoot as many as you want. Whenever you want.
Now, what if you, again, I'm tangenting, it's kind of what I do in the podcast, but if you're being charged by either one of these things and you kill it in self-defense, that's all good? Maybe.
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
So, if a feral pig, it doesn't matter. You just shoot them. Right. But if it's, like a bear, it's a cougar, whatever, and you shoot it in self-defense, you have to report, and then Game and Fish comes over, they investigate, so on and so forth. Damn. And usually...
He almost killed me, I swear to God.
Usually in that case, they'll be like, okay, I understand. I actually had a buddy a couple of years ago. They were hunting down south deer, and they spotted a bear And one of them radios to his buddy and said, "Hey, there's a bear coming towards you." And he's like, "Yeah, I see it." And he's watching it, and it's getting closer and closer. So he fires off a shot
into the air to scare him.
Yeah, just to scare the bear away.
Yeah.
Well, the bear pops his head up, looks, and then hauls ass right towards him.
Oh, man.
And he's like, "Oh, crap." And the other guy was, looking through his binoculars and was watching the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this bear's charging right at him. And, of course, it gets closer, and he was like, "What do I do?" So he ended up shooting the bear. And he contacted Game and Fish. Game and Fish went down there, investigated. They heard the whole story. And they let him, slide on it. And they're like, "Okay, I understand, blah, 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 whatever," And they tried to buy the bear from the Game and Fish. And Game and Fish just took it.
Well, so what would Game and Fish do with it?
They do their research on it to see if there was, if it had any type of diseases, anything like that.
Huh, okay. So to them, that's a scientific find.
Right.
That sits outside.
Because what caused this bear to attack?
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
So it's a mammal.
Right.
So it could have rabies or something like that.
Could be.
Sure, because rabies is only a mammalian thing. Okay.
Or it has the zombie
The zombie deer disease, yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy. So people have shot the mountain lions on self-defense. Those things will actually stalk you.
Right. Well, I saw a guy with a bow on YouTube, and this thing, he put a tree between him and it, just as close as you and I are, and it kept swinging at him, and he with a bow, you've only got like one shot.
Right.
And he barely caught him, just caught him in the chest and dropped the I want to say cougar, but I'm saying that wrong. Mountain lion.
No,
it is a cougar.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cougar, mountain lion. What isn't there another type?
It's
all the same. Okay, so there's like a general term and a specific term. I'm sure there's like...
You could just call him a saber-tooth.
The tiger, the short-toothed saber, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And that was what I was curious about, because like in that scenario, how do you play around with, fishing game? Because a guy like you're responsible, these things. If I was out, when I go backpacking, which is more of what I do, and camping, I carry a pistol on me. And if I have a cougar come after me and he's going to come after me, I'm putting him down. You know what I mean? It's just gonna happen.
That's what you want to do. I mean, you want to try and scare them off,
sure.
But a lot of times they're not scared of you.
Right.
They know
now
you could scare a bear more than you can like a mountain lion.
Wow. That's saying something.
Because a bear would come in, and you wave your arms and, you do all that. But if it's pissed and you're getting in their way, they're going to attack you. Now, a lot of times a bear is more afraid of you than you are of him.
Okay.
Or her. The bad thing is if you're ever out there and you come between a female, which is a sow, and her cubs, now you're in trouble.
Right. Kind of like, oh man, of course I'm going to forget one of my favorite movies. The Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Oh, what was that one?
God damn, I got internet. Hold on. I got internet. I don't always have internet when I'm out in the wilderness here doing my recordings. Revenant.
There it is.
Yeah, the Revenant. So he got between a mama bear and the cub and didn't realize it and just got regulated. And does that scenario happen a lot? Is that common, I guess?
You can get in between them, and it's scary. I mean, I was shed hunting, last year, and I'm just walking along in the mountains, looking for the antlers, and I just happened to look up, and I was like, oh shit, there's a bear right there. And it was just staring right at me, and this dude was big. I was like, oh crap. So right off the bat, I was like, where's the cubs?
Yeah.
So I start looking, I'm looking, and I reach back. I had my pistol with me, so I reached back and I grabbed it, and loaded up around, and I just started walking backwards, and I was like, oh,
please don't be behind me.
I was like, don't be coming this way, because there's so much dead and down, all the trees, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to run from this guy.
Yeah.
So I didn't turn my back, I just I was backing up in the mountain, I was just kind of like, okay, there's a tree there, step over it, and then I'll get behind a tree, and then I kind of would stop, peek around the corner, to see where it's at.
Yeah.
And luckily it ended up taking off, the opposite direction.
Right.
And I watched it, and it kind of went up the hillside, and then it'll turn around and it started coming back down towards me. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I was like, just go, and finally it ended up, I guess it caught my wind.
Right.
Sent to me, and then it took off.
Well, and it would be good that because, okay, so maybe this would be some fact checking for me as well. So when it comes to black bears compared to like grizzlies? Because that's really the only things that we have in our area of North America is those two types, but we don't have grizzlies in New Mexico, right? Okay. Is one more aggressive than the other? I've been told
the
the black
grizzlies
bear
is from, I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about the grizzlies. I heard that grizzlies are pretty aggressive.
Sure.
I've seen tons of black bears, and I've never had an incident with a black bear.
Sure. And because like, so a buddy of mine, Mr. J-Rod, if you're watching, he does like a lot of outdoor stuff, and he talked me into buying a hammock that's a tent. It's a hammock tent, and it's essentially just like a hammock that over the top of it, where you would typically just like, you know, you could just sit into it. It's actually got mosquito netting, like a tent over top on it, and then you can pull a rain tarp over that as well, and it's all like a system that you get an all-in-one. It packs into a tiny little bag, which is sweet, you know. But you know, you don't think about it because the way you get into it is you get in from the bottom, and there's a Velcro strip down the center of it that you spread open, and then you put yourself inside of. I could come up with some, you know, how that might look. I'm like going to a butthole or
the
something.
Imagination just goes crazy.
Wild there. But when you lay back into it, it shuts back, and you're basically sealed inside of a burrito of a hammock. And so in the middle of the night, him and I thought, you know, okay, we're in an area that's not as hiked as most. Like, it's an old trail that didn't get messed with, that he had known about, and we went up there. And that night we had tied the head of both of our hammocks to one tree, and then our feet to different ones, you know, just the ends of the hammock. Right. I guess we may have taken a few bottles of miniature wine up there as the miniature bottles of wine. And like, I downed one myself, so I was sleeping hard. Well, I guess this bear came into the camp, and it had to have been a black bear. And I guess it was sniffing around, and I don't know about swatting at the hammocks, but it had made enough ruckus to where it woke him up, and he knew that it was a bear. He could just hear it, you know, and he was trying to scare the bear off. And he said after him making noise, hey bear, it didn't go away. And I'm asleep. Like, I don't even know what's going on, but I guess he pulls his gun out, and he's got it cocked, and he's ready to go, but he didn't want to shoot me, of course, being right next to him, essentially, you know? So he was like, Morgan, and he's jumping up and down in the hammock trying to wake me up because we're both attached. Well, the bear runs off, and at that point I wake up. And I thought it was the funniest thing, because that's when I wake up and I feel the hammock just swaying, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You know? And he tells me a story. I'm like, you're fucking with me, you know? And he's like, no, I swear to God. But I thought it was interesting. We had never, you know, like in that scenario, I'd never thought that they would come up and even, you know, I thought that they were more scared than that, you know, but the fact they come up, they're curious, you know, they're very capable of killing me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's why I was always curious. Like, are they, you know, I've never heard of a black bear killing somebody. Is that like, have you heard in your...
I haven't. I've heard of stories of them attacking people.
Okay.
And if they're, you know, I don't know if the outcome of it, you know, but I have heard stories of people getting attacked by a black bear.
Damn.
And that's the thing, is a lot of them get where they're overpopulated. They really come in, you know, because they're running out of food out there. There's too many bears. So they start moving into like the towns, digging in trashes, you know, these mountain towns.
Yeah.
And that's why they have those bear boxes, you know, what kind of lock everything. But you have those people out there who feed the bears. Right. And you're like, do not feed the bears. Yeah. You know,
especially when you live out there.
I mean, they had a cartoon about it. Don't feed the bears.
Yeah.
You know, but they get domesticated, and then that's when they get more dangerous.
Like, I smell lunch.
Yeah.
What do you mean I can't come over here? So a grizzly is like 1,200 pounds ish.
Yeah, they're
comparatively
huge.
To like, well, how big does a black bear get at maybe the biggest or normal?
Yeah, I mean, people have reported them about like 600 pounds. God, you know, which it's huge. And there's a guy down south. He said that the bear came out of there was at least like 700 pounds. It was huge. And you're like, dude, that's a big bear.
Yeah.
And usually a lot of the bears, what you see, they're not that big, you know, and a lot of bears
is more scarce than we would think for the bears nowadays. Would I be right in saying that? Because they don't like hunt. They don't run down an elk or something like that, do they? Or do I have that wrong?
They can. Yeah.
They can.
Yeah.
Okay.
They could run down, and that's a lot of it. They'll just find the dead ones, you know, or they eat the leftovers and stuff like that. But that's what they do. They'll hunt down deer, elk, you know, stuff like that. And there's videos of them, and you could actually see them chasing, you know,
because they could do like 30 miles an hour or something like that.
Yeah, something like that there. And you're like, that big animal? And they say, oh, yeah, just run downhill. You're like, don't run downhill.
I've watched videos
Those things will catch you no matter what. Yeah. Unless if you're like the Flash.
And you can't climb a tree because they're better at climbing.
They're going to climb that tree.
Damn. Because I seen and I'm all YouTube videos instead of actual experience, but we're gonna fucking change that. But there was these guys in a hide, which is essentially like a tree hide where they were up mounted in a tree, like they
like tree stand.
That's what I'm saying. There you go. That's the correct vernacular. And the black bear came and climbed up the tree and actually was like sniffing around the two hunters, and like from me to you again, and that bear was just like, hey.
Yeah, I know a guy he's on the pro staff team.
Okay,
with Onca Gear, and he was in his tree stand, and there's another tree stand right next to him, and the bear climbed up and was basically in the tree stand next to him. And you're like, you got to be kidding me. You're like, what do you do? And
pull out your camera, I guess.
Yeah, you're like, I guess I'm going to take a picture of this. I'm not going to shoot him because this is cool.
Right, yeah. Oh, my God. Well, so that led me to my next kind of like question. So all of this hunting stuff across the board, New Mexico, wherever, you were talking about overpopulation. I feel that people that don't hunt, and for me, I've heard misinformation purely because I'm not around enough hunting world and stuff like that. So why would, you get these PETA types, and this may speak to things that are a little bit outside of this realm, but like how they just banned the coyote hunting in New Mexico, or they're trying to. I think it passed some part of the...
Yeah, they passed the coyote calling contest on state land.
There you go. So with that in mind, why would it be good for me to go out and take down coyotes en masse, and or... why is it good for me to go kill bears and elk and stuff like that? Well, and explain that kind of in layman's terms.
Okay, so a coyote, you think about it, it's a dog.
Okay.
Everybody breeds dogs. How many? They have a litter, right?
8, 9.
Every time they come into heat, they have a litter, right? And so, 8, 9, 10, whatever, a coyote maybe, 4 to 6 dogs.
Okay.
And then that just keeps growing and growing and growing, So they'll hunt rabbits. That's their main source, right? Sure. Rabbits and, mice and stuff like that. Game. But if there's too many of them in that one area, then they'll start going for fawns, in which they do anyways.
Okay.
So fawns or calves from the elk and the deer, the babies, during the calving season, that's when they're around. They just go over there and they'll grab that calf and take off, or that fawn, and, kill it.
Or a mother when she's in labor, I've heard that they'll actually come and tear
go
up
over
the
there. And if
there's
more, a lot of coyotes though, they say, they don't hunt in packs. Well, they do.
Okay.
And they'll go out and they'll attack a fawn, and 2, 3 of them, and they'll just jump on it and take it down. And the sad thing is they just start eating it right away. They'll hold it down, and the other ones are over there chewing on it.
It's not a kill shot like a lion goes.
Yeah, it's not a kill shot like a lion would jump on it, suffocate it by its nose or its throat and kill it.
That's working smarter, not harder, coyotes. Come on,
right? Yeah. So the coyotes, they just breed and breed and breed, and then in cities and stuff like that, people are like, "Oh, my cat's gone. Missing cat, missing dog." Yeah. Well, it's just coyotes are moving into town.
Sure.
And we call them city dogs, and here in Albuquerque, we see them up there in the heights all the time.
Sure.
Just walking. You'll find them on Montgomery walking down the sidewalk.
Right.
And you're like, you got to be kidding me, but they're not afraid. They're getting domesticated and they're eating everybody's pets. So when they start running out of food, that's why a big problem in New Mexico, our deer population has dropped.
Because there's so many coyotes.
There's a lot of coyotes. Okay. And now that they're passing this law, and they're trying to go after trapping and they're doing all this other stuff, it's going to bite them in the butt. They don't understand. They just want to save the animal so bad, but we don't eradicate them. We've been doing this for hundreds of years, and there's still hundreds of thousands of dogs out there.
So would you equate them to almost like vermin, like rats, because they can just reproduce not necessarily no matter how many of them you kill, but more or less with these hunting parties? Because if I have it correct, they basically put on a contest to go and capture or kill as many coyotes as possible, right? Isn't that what those?
Yeah, pretty much. And they kind of, most dogs wins, or biggest dog wins. It depends on the contest. Now, it's just a way to get more people involved. And it's something it's a hunting, so you're going out there and they're not going out there and just slaughtering them and leaving them.
They're bringing them back in.
They bring them back in. They're doing stuff. They usually have people there, like at these big contests. They have people there. They actually skin them, and they take the hides.
So what would I do with the meat off of a coyote?
Nothing.
Nothing. You don't eat coyote meat.
You don't eat coyote meat.
Okay.
Now there is a guy. What was it, like Meat Eaters or no? What was his name? Can't remember. I watched a YouTube video of a guy and he shot a coyote and they cooked it up and they ate it.
Okay.
I guess you could.
But this is akin to eating like a cougar because they're essentially a carnivore,
right?
And the meat may not be as tasteful as a deer or an elk or something like that because it's not all plant based or whatever,
right? And I mean, look at all these other countries and stuff like that. They eat everything,
okay?
You know, so I guess you could if you wanted to.
Sure.
It's just like people, they won't eat a jackrabbit,
right?
But they'll eat a cottontail. And
sure.
You're like, well, it's a rabbit.
Yeah.
They eat the exact same stuff.
Sure. Well, I would think a jackrabbit too. I've been told is just more like if there's less meat on them, or is
never had a jackrabbit.
Okay. So why wouldn't you want to eat one though? Like if just
I don't know.
From your personal opinion.
That's just. I think I haven't shot a jackrabbit in a while.
Okay.
And I'm thinking if I shoot one, I'm going to try it.
Sure.
Why not? Right. It's just a bigger cottontail.
And they produce about 10,000 of them out of like 2 rabbits. Right. They can just keep making them. No, and I guess just to speak back to my question about conservation, because I know that there's a lot of people, I can't say a lot of people that are going to be listening to this podcast mostly are going to be hunter types, people that are interested in this stuff.
We're hoping so.
Yeah, right. But in the same sense, people that may not know these things, they may think that it's cruel to be a hunter across the board. And I thought it was interesting because Joe Rogan had... cat scratch fever guy.
I don't know.
The singer. And anyways, he was on there. He's a big outdoor guy. See, now people are going to make fun of me because I don't even know the guy that sang that damn song. Let's see.
Well,
I'm
like in my own little box, my own little bubble.
His name, God damn it. Song. Why do I feel like such an idiot here? Hold on. You guys can judge me. I don't care. Ted Nugent. Thank you. So Ted Nugent is apparently like a huge hunter.
Yeah, I should have known that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but I should have known it as well. But he's like a huge hunter. Even now and like...
he's real big.
No offense, but his advanced age, he's still outside like 230 days out of the year. And he puts on these huge youth events where he'll get together. He has ranches in like Texas and I don't remember where else he said, but Texas is one of the big ones. And he gets, young kids together and takes them out hunting like with the nude, you know what I mean? Which is...
Yeah.
It's a huge draw. It's a big platform for him to use to do something like that. And because he's so mired in all these things, he catches a lot of flack from the PETA types, from these cats trying to break up like the coyotes. Right. So I thought it was interesting because just to address that, like the way that he explained it made a lot of sense to me, that essentially if you culled the herd and in some cases where carnivores are the bigger, there's more of them, then you're able to actually help grow the population. So in this case with New Mexico, is that probably the only thing that we have an issue with overpopulation is like coyotes, or does anything else get out of hand like that?
Cougars.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we were to save all of them and shut down hunting on deers and stuff like that, essentially we'd lose
devastate
the
everything.
Right.
It's just like they introduced wolves here in New Mexico.
The Mexican gray wolf?
Mexican gray wolf.
Okay.
What they don't understand, they put it over there in the Gila wilderness. They let them go. Well, now they're already out there in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
It's a wolf has a pack. And then, as they get bigger, another male will take a few females and create its own pack.
Sure.
And then they have their terrain, their territory.
Sure.
What they control.
It's a couple 100 miles, right?
Yeah, it's huge. And then, so this one will leave and go over here and create, and then start breeding and doing its thing, and then over here and over here. So they just start spreading like crazy. It's just like the issue Wyoming's having, Idaho. Now they have too many.
Sure.
And Yellowstone, they're devastated the herds in Yellowstone because of the wolves, and nobody can hunt them.
Right. And I think the way to think about it logically is that a deer, an elk, any of that, they're producing one offspring at a time.
1 to 2.
1 to 2.
Yeah, wow, they could have twins.
Could you imagine that shit? 2 of those huge ass hoofed things coming out of you. Oh my God. That's a tough
But yeah, the twins are rare, but it does happen.
Well, and that's what I was saying is like with when it comes to stuff like that. Like it makes you really, re-examine things. Like if you want to continue, because hunting is a huge piece of the economy on its own, just all the supplies and the time and, people literally look forward to it every year. That's like something they spend their vacation time on. You want to talk about capitalism. That's a way to spend money back into the economy, is to support small businesses. I mean, there's the butchers, there's the taxidermists, there's
a multi-billion-dollar industry
across the board. And if you're trying to shrink this down, I think that you should at least go out. And that's my thing, is like, we both know I'm a different kind of cat, right? But like, I want to form my own opinions by going out just a little bit. Yeah, but I want to form my own opinions by actually going and doing these things, rather than being like, oh, why do you hunt? That's terrible, because I don't think that it's a bad thing. I think it's awesome. The idea of bringing home natural meat like that, I think, is great. I've been around the dairy industry, and I think that the way that they give you processed meat that you buy at the marketplace, at the supermarket, I think is horrible. You know what I mean? Like there's no part of that that's natural, almost no part of it. Right. I mean, you're eating force-fed animals, and when you eat something that comes out of the wilderness, it's this tasty meat that, is essentially
and
been wild.
Speaking of that, like a lot of people, it has that wild game taste.
Yeah.
Yes, it is different, but a big majority of, it's the way you take care of your animal.
Okay.
Once you shoot it, after you harvest that or you take that animal down, what's your next step? A lot of people, they just want to sit there and drive around and show it off. Don't do that. First thing, like me and my buddies, we shoot an animal, we find it, we take our pictures, because it's memory. You want to preserve that memory.
Of course.
We immediately skin it.
Okay.
To let that body heat escape, let that meat start cooling down.
And
then we start cutting it up, and you cut the hindquarters off, front legs, the back straps, so on and so forth, and you start tearing this animal apart so it cools that meat down quick.
Okay.
And the quicker you could do that, the better the animal's going to taste.
Less gamey, essentially. Yes. I kind of like the gamey taste, but I think it's just
I've had some with it's really strong, and you're like, "Ooh, man, okay, that's bad."
That's interesting that the time that it takes for you to process it affects that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and because it's holding that heat.
Okay.
And it's just like if you bought a steak, what are you going to do? Just throw it in the an oven and just let it, or I can't really use an oven because it'll cook it.
Right.
But
just set it out on the counter.
Yeah, just set it out on the counter for 5-6 hours. You're going to be like, I don't know, man. I kind of forgot about it.
So
you don't want that.
So I'm out, I'm hunting, I shoot down a deer. This has always been my thought. Take pictures, and I'm cutting this guy up. How do you guys take that meat and get it back home without it going bad? Like, that timer, how does that work?
So you purchase game bags.
Okay.
So it's just a knitting fabric what you could put your meat in.
Okay.
So you're out in the field, you're an hour or a mile or two out, from your vehicle. You shoot your animal, you chop it up, you put it in these bags, you start hauling it out. If you can't take it all out, you want to hang it up in the tree, in the shade.
Okay.
Try and keep it away from the sun.
Okay.
Get it in a shaded area just so that wind is blowing around it and it's keeping it cool.
Interesting.
Okay. Once you get back into camp with all your meat, throw it inside a cooler with some ice.
Okay.
And that way it just immediately starts.
So you bring ice even if you're out for like 5 days.
Yeah, what I do is I have a couple coolers, so I fill up milk jugs and I freeze them.
Okay.
Before I go out, so I'll have like 5 or 6 milk jugs frozen.
Okay.
And then we'll buy some bags of ice, throw it all in one cooler, so it's just a solid thing of ice. And sometimes we don't use it, and sometimes we do.
That's a frowny face. I would hate to go out and not.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, well, I just wasted $30 on ice.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You better have it than not have it.
This is the first time it's come to me to where I can come up with a good reason to have one of those Yeti coolers that keeps, they're like, because those things are like $350, $500 plus.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, I know we've been looking at them like crazy, and every time we look at one, we're like, I don't know, man. I can't bring myself to spend the money.
Yeah, it's because I always think beer and like food at going camping.
Well, I
look at
the size of it. I'm like, can you fit an elk in that?
Okay,
that's how I judge things. I'm like,
sure.
If I could fit an elk in it, then great. But in reality, I'm kind of looking at, why don't we just go down to Walmart and buy one of those little chest freezers for like $300?
Right.
And then that way you just plug it into your generator, start your generator up, get it cold.
I see. Okay.
And you could do that here at home. get that little ice chest cold.
Yeah.
And then you unplug it and put it on your trailer, fill it with ice. It's going to keep frozen. It's just a big old giant cooler.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then you get out there and you just plug it in and turn on the generator.
So I guess to further that question, I bag my deer. It's day one of a 5-day trip. You're just going to try to keep it in the cooler, or do you have to shag home and
it depends on what you want. If you want to leave your buddy,
okay,
make him clean up and hunt alone, then you can split.
Right.
But usually, whatever we do, like my wife gets mad at me. You know, she's like, "Well, you already filled your tag. Why don't you come home?" I can't leave my friend.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll stay out there. The thing is you just open up your drain on your cooler, so it drains that water.
Sure.
And you just, every time you go into town, you grab a bag of ice or two and you just keep it cold.
So as long as you keep it cold, then you're
as
in good
long as
shape.
you keep it cold, you're good.
Okay.
And it'll last.
That's what I was
leave
always,
it in there for a couple of weeks.
Because I always thought, like the longer you're out in the middle of the desert, being New Mexico, like how the hell do you guys do that? But that makes sense. So there's a lot of prep that goes into this.
Yeah.
Beforehand. Okay. So when you guys, I'm kind of leapfrogging around my line of questioning here. But when you guys go and do this, like the prep for this, some of the gear that you guys come up with, because I noticed, I just watched a few hunts on, I have watched in the, on hunting TV, whatever the fuck, carnivore,
Yeah, there's so many out there.
Yeah, the hunting stations on TV.
Sportsman Channel,
Pursuit,
there we go. See, all that. Yeah.
See, of course you know. But I was looking on YouTube and I was watching a couple videos of dudes actually, like just for days. And the guy was like, I'm on day one of a 5-day hunt, and he's out in the middle of Utah, and it takes him forever to get there. And that's what I was always, curious about. So when you go, we're about ready to put me in for a hunt. Or put my name in the hat. Am I wanting to aim for an area? Because if I understand it correctly, I would put in for, like, let's say I'm going for an elk and I want to say this area specifically. Do you choose one that's closer to civilization, or is there just ones that are better with game? Like, how do you?
There's units what are better. There's units what hold elk what are close to town.
Okay.
It all depends on what you want to do. Do you want to be close to your family? Just in case there's an emergency and you need to get home quick.
Yeah.
Or are you willing to travel the 3-4 hours to get to your spot?
Okay.
Me, whenever I put in for elk, I don't mind traveling for elk.
Yeah.
Deer, I'm like, I'll kind of stay close, And there's good units what are close to us. So, we could, and whenever it comes down to it, it depends on what you want to put in for, deer, elk, whatever. Then we could sit down.
Elk would be awesome.
Let's just figure out. Yeah. And that's the thing. Bow, rifle. Obviously, rifle, you don't have a bow, right?
No.
So,
and I don't think I have the experience to do that. I could shoot a bow, but not the way that I'd want to shoot a bow.
And that's the thing is, what are you comfortable with?
Sure.
Because there's also muzzleloader. And if you don't have any of those, I don't recommend just putting in and saying, well, I'm going to put in for bow, so wait till I draw and then I'll go buy me a bow. Don't do that.
Right. Sure.
I frown upon it. A lot of hunters frown upon it because you're not experienced and you could go out there and your chances of wounding an animal are very high.
Okay. Because you could miss.
Yeah, you could miss.
Okay.
You could shoot them somewhere where it's not going to kill them and they're going to run. You could shoot them in the gut and now that animal is going to suffer and die in 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, that kind of spoke back to my original question about like gear. So the area, the unit, as you call it, I got to use the right vernacular,
right terminology here.
There we go. Yeah, I act like I know what I'm doing. So when you're prepping for gear for this type of a hunt, you take into consideration like where it's at. You also take into consideration how long you're going to be there, and then the terrain you're going to cover. Do you have like some pretty nice backpacking gear that you've collected over the years?
I have a lot of different type of gear.
Okay.
I have the high end camo all the way down to the cheap Walmart camo.
Okay.
I have a good set of boots now in which your feet are the number one thing. So always buy good boots.
Sure.
Don't go cheap and say, they'll get me by. Just spend the money, buy yourself a good pair. We call them glass, but they're binoculars. Get yourself a good pair of glass because when you're out there in the field and you have yourself your little $30 pair of binoculars, you're not going to be able to see anything.
Right.
And that's the number one key.
But then when you get out there, you can't use the shit.
Right.
Okay.
That's the key is glassing areas. You want to get up high, you want to glass, and you want to find that animal, and then you want to make your move.
Right.
In which you got to say, okay, the wind's blowing this direction. We got to come over here. How are we going to get down there?
Sure.
So on and so forth. So there's a lot what plays into it, but you have to have good glass in order to see what you're going after. And you don't want to see an animal and be like, oh yeah, there's a deer. And then you walk all the way over there and you hike in there and it's a doe. And you're like,
okay.
Oh man, I just walked and spent 3 hours sneaking in on this and I can't even shoot it.
So you want to go for a male? You want to go for a...
Yes, okay. that's elk. You have either sex. You could hunt either one.
Is this something you put in for? Or
yes.
Oh wow. Okay.
So if you're putting in for elk, you could choose bull.
Okay.
You could choose cow only.
Okay.
Or you could choose hunts that have either sex. And so there are some changes this year in the rules and regs in certain units that a rifle hunt you can actually shoot either sex.
Interesting. Okay.
So, yeah.
So, okay, and I'm working, I guess it's, now that I'm thinking about it, we're working backwards from the kill because we talked about processing and then you talked about glassing, which is essentially trying to spot them. What is, I see you a lot on your page, which we haven't even talked about. So you have a Facebook page called Spot2Stalk.
Facebook and Instagram.
And then you have your, which is basically like a community for hunters, and you guys just kind of throw in anything about hunting in New Mexico or anywhere.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the, at Spot2Stalk. I don't keep up with my Facebook one very well as we do our Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram's very good, and it's kind of took off for us. So yeah, we just throw tons of pictures, but we take a lot of our trail camera pictures, so on and so forth. And we also run another one on Instagram. It's, what is it? New Mexico Trail Cams.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So that's just trail camera pictures from anybody here in the state who take good quality trail camera pictures, and they want to post it. They could send it to us and we'll throw it on there and throw their name on there and say, hey, this picture came in from so-and-so, know, and,
so that's Spot2Stalk. So that's SPOT, the number 2, and then STALK.
Correct.
And then
New Mexico Trail Cams. So NM Trail Cams.
Trail Cams. Okay.
Yeah.
And then just because we're in this spot right here, what's the name of your podcast?
The podcast, what we run is On the Game Trail. It's all one word, On the Game Trail.
Okay. Yeah. So make sure you guys subscribe, listen to some previous episodes.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. And I think you've got it on iTunes as well, but I saw it on
We have Google. It on iTunes, Google, and I believe Stitcher.
Okay.
And what's that other one? SoundCloud.
SoundCloud? Okay.
I was
I'm sure it's hitting Spotify too. Maybe not.
I don't know if my buddy runs more of that, and he set everything up. I just tag along and talk.
Okay.
So,
I was going somewhere with the Spot2Stalk stuff. Oh, right. So we're working backwards from glassing. So before you, I always see that you're on social media, you're going out and you're scouting. So what does scouting do for you? Like, do you do that before you hunt, or do you do that when you first get out to hunt?
You do it pretty much. We already started scouting.
Okay.
So we pick a unit and we just go out there and we start. It teaches you about the unit, how the unit is laid out, so on and so forth, private properties, boundary lines, so on and so forth, in which we have a mapping system. It's called Onyx Hunt. And it shows us all private property, boundary lines, everything.
Cool.
So we know exactly. And so we'll go out and we'll be like, okay, well, we can't access this because there's private, but look back here, we could work this way. So scouting is a big part of your hunt.
Okay.
So if you draw a unit and you do not know that unit or anything about it, get out there, start driving around, drive the roads, get a map of it, find out what roads are open, what roads are closed, and start walking around. Look for sign.
Sure. And this is before that you would actually come up to your hunt. Okay.
Yeah, this is before the hunt. And so like right now we're already out there. We're setting trail cameras, so on and so forth, doing everything out there. Once we find out we draw, then we get out there. We start setting up trail cameras, and we just kind of put them throughout different areas, try and find out what the elk are doing.
Like their habits.
Okay. Right. So you're learning about them. Now, last year we had one area where we had tons of elk, big elk, everything. Opening day of the hunt, not a single animal was around.
Oh, man.
And you're like, it's like they know the rules and regs. They know that day.
Right. They start to snap about that time.
And that's the thing is, a lot of people, they'll go out and they'll start scouting a day or two before.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're driving the roads constantly. Well, all they're doing is notifying the animals, say, hey, we're out here. So they get pushed further back.
Okay.
And a lot of people, they just hunt close to the roads and so on and so forth. We walk. I mean, there's days on our elk hunts we'll walk 7-8 miles just in the morning hunt, and then we'll do another 7 miles in the evening. Damn. You know, so we're putting on.
That's cool though. I mean, that's essentially, that was one thing I hadn't gotten to, but I think that's something to be part of it. I noticed that you sometimes talk about like doing a workout to get ready for hiking, and kind of like a conditioning thing.
Yeah.
Because there's some people that maybe they're just not into exercise outside of like hunting and basic, you know, scouting, I guess, right. and doing stuff like that. So is that something that you take into consideration as that season comes up? Do you start training and like?
We try to.
Okay.
I can't get motivated that good. Yeah. I'm trying to right now, you know, just to start running again and, you know, try and get into shape. But we do a lot of the shed hunting.
Yeah.
So when we get out into the mountains, it kind of pushes us into, you know, getting into shape, you know, and walking and getting and hiking, you know, I mean, you're up and down hills, the different elevation, you know, it gets tiring.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine. I mean, and that's why I was asking. So I have my watch connected, and I see you, Jared. Thanks for watching, bro. And he was sending me a message on this. So he hikes a lot, and he's always doing the stair climber.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
so, that's perfect. That's perfect exercise.
Right. And what's funny is in the dichotomy of him and I run a lot. I run like every day, but I run flat, and I purposely run on things that give me more efficiency for speed and over distance, which is not running up a hill or stairs. So I don't ever train for that. You know what I mean? And even though I'm okay on a trail, when it comes to hitting a mountain, him and I are almost neck and neck in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you talk about that, because I mean, you're a firefighter as well. So like you carry humans and shit. So I don't see that as being like a huge stretch for you. To be good at that.
It's still rough, and you'll be surprised. I mean, especially when you get an animal down. I thought I was in shape last year when I shot my deer.
Yeah.
I was out there by myself, and I quartered this thing up, put him on my pack. I couldn't get myself up off the ground with that pack.
No.
But I had the whole entire deer quartered up and on my back.
You could, I mean, what did you do? You have a buddy?
Well, I wish I had somebody with me. I was just me, you know. But I ended up finally getting up. It took me a couple tries, but I got up, and of course the hike is uphill.
Yeah.
It kicked my butt.
Yeah.
No matter how good a shape you think you're in, you're going to get your butt kicked.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll push yourself. You'll be like, oh yeah, I could do that. I'm in shape. So you go and do it. And you do it again and again, day after day.
Sure.
Before you know it, I mean, you're tripping over logs because you can't pick up your leg.
Damn.
You know, because you're just so burnt out. And that's the thing is, you know, the protein and stuff like that, what people drink, you know, to help with those muscle.
Or don't.
Right. My wife, actually, you know, Amber, she was sitting there. She's like, why don't you take protein? I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I started, and I'll make myself a little protein shake in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'll drink that as my breakfast.
Right.
And man, it helped tremendously.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, a huge difference.
Well, people laugh at me sometimes, and a lot of like runners that are 5 or 6 Jedis above me, they won't run they're very specific about their diet before they run. But I lift a lot, so I can't just run on carbs because I'll burn out lifting, and I usually lift and then I'll go do cardio. So I'll do I'll lift and then I'll go hit the bike for 5 miles or 10 miles, or I'll lift and then I'll do 5 to 10 miles of running. And to do that in one shot like that in a 2 hour, 3 hour span, I'm getting cooked. That was perfect. Yeah, I figured that's going to make a difference. You
can see us now.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's interesting that you talk about that. And I wondered how much of that hunters, do you feel like that's only something that you kind of touch on, or is there a lot of your hunting community?
A lot of the hunting community, they get into shape during hunting season.
Sure.
They're
that's
like,
funny.
I have to get in shape because
they
want to be able to get out there, and they want to be able to walk, and they want to be able to hike them hills, you know, because if you're not in shape and you get halfway up that mountainside and you're spent,
right?
Or you walk 10 feet and you're like, oh, you're huffing and puffing, you know, you're like, oh man, I'm tired. I can't do this.
So you can't do, what you're saying is you can't just run off a beer and jerky while you're up there.
No.
Damn. So I didn't think about this, but I'm going to pull you guys up on Facebook. Let's see if I can see if anybody's asking questions. So Jared asked a question. Oh, there. Yeah, we're up. Check it out. I don't know if it's going to show us the questions.
That's crazy.
4 comments. There we go. I don't know if I'm going to fuck something up with the recording. So if I do, I'm sorry, guys. Trying to. How much of this is? Oh, yeah. It's a little bit delayed.
Oh, yeah. I was like, hey, who's that? That was cool. Me. That's pretty funny.
Tell Brian to scoot towards you. I can only see you, my wife says. There we go.
Who's that?
My wife, she says.
There, how's that? Is that better?
That's perfect.
All right, I got to move this mic a little bit.
There you go. Yeah.
Is that good?
A little bit. I wonder if I can I could just snake it over a little bit. There we go. Oh yeah.
There I'm scooting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. We can see you guys now. I should have probably looked at this earlier. So another question that Jared had asked is, and I think we did answer the carnivore question, but he was also asking about trapping, and I guess there's supposed to be some sort of a ban, or is there a change on policy in New Mexico for the trapping stuff? I know we kind of covered that, but just to answer a fan question here.
Sorry, I got to readjust myself there.
No, you're there now.
So I know that they've been talking about a ban on the trapping.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything yet, so I can't really elaborate too much on that question. I wish I could. Sorry. I mean, I could definitely look into it and get back to you on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like worst case scenario is, I mean, we're touching on 1,000 subjects, so it's not like this is the podcast to answer all hunting questions. We could come back around. We could do number 2. Jared is supposed to be here.
And like I said, I mean, I'm not that big into trapping, so I don't follow it. Now, I have buddies who are associated with the Trappers Association. They're huge in that. And that's what they do. I have guys down south who they make a living off of trapping. Yeah. I have guys up in the East Mountains, but that's all they do. They live for or trapping.
That's interesting.
So those are guys I could actually contact and find out, some of those trapping questions.
So maybe in a future On the Game Trail question or a podcast could be to cover some of that. Maybe I could jump in and we could crisscross podcasts here.
Heck yeah.
You're the only other podcaster that I know in this area. There's like a group that I was in, that I am in. It's a podcasters group. And I'll have to invite you to them. Kind of, sometimes it's just a bunch of newbies. Is that the
one on Facebook?
Yeah. Well, I think I added you to one of them, but there's like 2 more that I'm in now. But somebody had asked, where are you at? And there was like 2 guys that chimed in from New Mexico, but they're down south, like Las Cruces.
Oh, I know one of them.
Okay.
Not a Grande.
Maybe. Honestly, we didn't get much further than that because I don't know if we were all on the same page. I don't want to bring political into anything, so I don't know if that's their thing. Like, I don't really care about the political stuff. So I never chased it, but I'm thinking, I'm like, well, now you're the 3rd podcaster I know in New Mexico, so we need to make
it's fun. I mean, and that's the thing is my buddy who handles a lot of the technical stuff, he likes to try and put one out every Monday for right now.
Okay.
So I think we're 11 episodes in, maybe 12.
Okay. And
we have one in the works what we got to get with, and like I was telling you, the guys with Vortex Optics.
Okay.
And so we'll be doing that one. Our last one we just did, what's out now is with Northern Broadheads. The guy was from Australia.
Okay.
That guy was cool, man.
Northern Broadheads was I saw that one, but I haven't listened to it yet. That's the one for bows, right?
Yes, okay. That's for bows. Okay. And then we had one will be coming out this Monday with A3 Outfitters.
Okay.
And they guide on New Mexico and Arizona.
So I got to ask you, now that we're on gear like that, there is something that I was reading about that Joe Rogan had brought up. How did I call it? I said body, suit, electricity, blocking, clothes.
I've heard about that.
Yeah. So and I think it was called a HEC or something. HECS. Yeah. HECS. HECS. So how much of this do you buy into about you being able? So HECS is basically it's HECS, and the idea is that you can get extremely close to animals because it blocks your electricity that your body naturally puts off, which I guess is something that they can read. Like how this guy is on the website, you guys will see they're like stalking birds like 10 feet away and like elk and stuff like that. So when it comes to hunting stuff like that, how much of your gear are you putting into that thought pattern? Like, is scent a big thing? I mean,
scent's a huge thing.
Okay.
Now you could go back into the day, like way back in the day, with like Fred Bear,
right?
Big time bow hunter, everything like that. He used to hunt in plaid, shirts and blue jeans.
Sure.
And he's getting 5 yards, 10 yards from animal.
Right. Probably didn't bathe too often comparatively to now.
Is if you play the wind,
yeah,
you don't have to worry about it.
Sure. Okay. So
now if it's your glare plays a big part, so you want to stay out of the sun. So if you're in the shade, in a shaded area and your movements are slow,
okay,
you could stalk into the animal.
So essentially just being as quiet as possible, just being being a hunter.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you play the wind. It doesn't matter a lot of people, there's so many different type of camo out there.
Yeah.
Tons of different patterns, but in reality, you could go out there and you could be wearing the high-end camo or the low-end camo and still get in just as close as anything, as long as you're playing that wind.
I like how you're like, that's like genuine hunting shit you just said right there. That's some man stuff right there, Okay, so I'm trying to think.
Well, before I used to be all like, oh man, I got to get that good camo. The more I've learned and the older I've got and, just in the hunting, a big part of it is play the wind. Okay. Now you could cover scent.
Right, that's
nothing's going to
sprays and shit.
Really eliminate your scent. I don't know if this little electrified clothing actually works, but if your scent is always going to be on there. Now you could eliminate to a point, but the minute you start sweating, your scent's there.
Right.
We're not natural to any game animals unless if you're hunting the sandias.
Right.
Right. And if you're hunting the sandias, don't wear camo.
Right.
Because that deer is going to see something and be like, dude, you're a bush. I'm out. He's going to take off. But if you're over there in your jogging pants, he's going to just hang out and not move because they're so used to the people.
He's going to pet me. Oh, he shot me. Fuck.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Yeah, because the sandias, just for you guys that may not be from this area, the sandias are very much hiked, ran, explored. There's trails all over. It's not really like as cool as like even the Manzano Mountains, which are just south of the sandias, which are much less, messed with by humans. There's very little traffic there and very little water, so there's a lot less. There's still animals there, but it's just not in the same. Did the people hunt the Manzanos?
Yes, they do.
Okay,
well,
that's interesting. I think, is that me buzzing or is that you buzzing?
No, that's me buzzing.
You're buzzing. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. So what was the next piece I was going to come up with? So I guess one of the things that I wanted to ask just for sake of, before we do the actual signing me up for the hunt part, things that you would have wished that you had known that you know now from your earlier years or mistakes that you've made, things that you would like to impress upon people that want to get into hunting. If somebody's listening to this podcast, they're like, you know what, fuck it. If Morgan can do it, I could do it. That idiot can do it.
Just the one thing, just know what you're doing. Know your weapons, whatever you're going out hunting. There's times when I went out, I had my hunter safety. Mm-hmm. I knew how to be safe.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know what the hell I was doing.
Sure. You get those horror stories of like some dude shooting another hunter because he's trying to shoot the animal, doesn't know if there's a guy on the other side.
I've had an incident with the muzzleloader where I almost shot myself. Ooh. And it was just, it was an elk hunt. I've told this story on one of our podcasts, but went after an elk. It was a muzzleloader hunt, and I went after my elk, and I don't know if the powder horn, what I was wearing, because it was an old traditional muzzleloader, so you had to do the old style.
Pour it, right? Just tear the cartridge with your teeth and shit.
And pop it open and pour that powder.
That's awesome.
Okay. I don't know if that caught it or if the trigger was a hair trigger. Okay. Meaning, you barely touch that thing and it goes off.
Sure.
And I don't know if I cocked the gun or what I did, but I went to throw it on my shoulder, and when I let go of it, it went off. It shot. So the barrel is right there, and it just right next to my ear. And
wake you right up.
Yeah. Talk about changing your britches in that one. You know what I mean? You're like, oh man, I just shit myself.
Yeah, that's.
But it was crazy. So just know what you're doing. Pay attention. Don't go out there blind.
Would you say go with somebody that's experienced like you, like somebody that's been out a few times?
Your first time, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Because they'll have a lot of the equipment and stuff like GPSs. They'll know the terrain, stuff like that. It's just like I said earlier, I have that mapping system. It's called Onyx Hunt.
It's like a handheld GPS?
It's handheld. I have everything on my phone.
Oh, okay.
So I did pre-download the area. Because
the topo map.
Yeah, the topo map, whatever. And so I pre-download it here in town where I have service.
Yeah.
So when I'm out there and I have no service, I have that map downloaded onto my phone.
Interesting.
And it runs off GPS, but it's still pinpoint accurate.
Right, because it's using GPS, so it doesn't care about the cell service.
Exactly.
It's looking at GPS.
It's using the GPS, and then I sit there and I we do our research, we Google Earth, we use this Onyx Hunt, and we're just constantly looking up certain areas, terrain, and more than likely, no matter where you're at, you're going to come across a road.
Right.
You know, so if you end up getting lost, you know, go one direction.
Yeah.
And you're going to hit a road.
Sure.
You know, a lot of it, we don't have that real deep backcountry.
Sure.
What a lot of people
you could
talk
get
about.
there, but I feel like that, like the Gilas maybe, like
the
way
Gila,
down
the wilderness,
south.
the wildernesses are pretty much like the backcountry.
Sure.
Yeah.
And is there a lot of hunting there?
Oh yeah.
Is it really? Okay.
That's one of our top units to hunt elk.
Okay, because it's sparse. There's not as many humans, so I'm sure animals.
Yeah, and you can't
flourish.
drive in there. It's foot or horseback.
Interesting.
You know, to get back into those wilderness areas. So getting back in there now, yeah, people get lost. You know, everywhere. But so I mean, and going back to like things I wish I know, I learn every single time I go out.
Okay.
I'm constantly learning something new. I wish I knew more about calling.
Okay.
And I still wish I knew more about calling.
Okay.
I know a little bit. I don't know a lot.
Sure.
You know,
like you want to sound more injured or more sexy as whatever.
I want to be the sexiest bitch out there.
Proud of you. We're proud of you for saying that.
Yeah, thanks.
So okay, and then like I've always wondered, how do you guys figure out how to like field trim like that? That's just something passed down. Like you have people teach you.
I've had people teach me. I've learned so much, and I think part of it is YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube. My wife calls it YouTube University. I couldn't even say it. Right. But you learn so much, and you take those techniques, and then you got to put them out.
Sure.
You got to try it. That's the only way you're going to learn. Now, I've chopped up so many animals, and just with the taxidermy and learning on my own, you know, like when, you know, go shoot a coyote.
Right.
You know, I'll skin that coyote and I'll tan the hide. And I was just constantly learning and then disassembling the animal, you know. So you'll end up knowing exactly where those joints are and parts
from doing it.
From doing it.
Right.
And I did an elk once by myself. My buddy shot an elk. Right after he shot his, I was able to shoot mine. And, you know, they're both of them right there. So I ended up taking care of mine. He's like, I got to go get the truck and get this other guy. He'll come help me, you know, find my elk.
Yeah.
By the time he got back, I was done.
Wow.
You know, it's just, I know where the cuts are. And I've been teaching my buddy, you know, and he's getting better and better every time he does it. He'll ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You know, well, what do I do? I'm like, dude, don't be afraid. Just follow it. Feel that bone, because you just got to grab that meat and you'll feel the bone and you just cut around it. Grab that meat.
So is it still something where you could fuck that up and like cut open a stomach and soil your meat?
Yeah.
Is that the thing? Okay.
Well, and that's the thing is, so a lot of people gut their animal. Mm-hmm. So, and when you gut, you got to kind of cut through the hide and cut through the little membrane, you know, and then push down on the guts and then slice up.
So you don't cut the guts.
Okay. So you're putting your one hand in there, you know, kind of make like a Y with your finger. So you're pushing down, and then your tip of your knife goes in and just kind of slice up.
Damn. Okay.
I don't gut animals anymore.
Okay.
It's called the gutless quartering.
Okay.
So I could disassemble a whole entire animal without even gutting it.
Wow. So you leave that membrane intact.
So now what I'm doing is I'm skinning from the back and kind of going over, instead of from the belly to the back, from the back to the belly.
That's cool.
And I'll strip the hide off, and then I remove the front shoulder, and then I go and I remove the hind quarter.
Okay.
And then I'll roll them over and do the other side, and then I'll take the back straps out and get into the tenderloins, take the neck meat off, you know, and chop the head off so that big rack's not in your way.
That would be a killer video. If we do get down on a hunt, man, and we bag one, I'd like to try to capture that.
Man, because if you draw and you get one, you're going to learn the whole process, because I'm not going to do it.
That's cool. No, and
I'll be there, because I sit there and I get frustrated, you know, when I'm watching people who are taking their time, like, just move, you know, you're frustrating me, and I take over.
Yeah.
I don't like to do that, because then they're never going to learn.
They're not capturing that knowledge.
Right. So like on my buddy Eric, you know, he's learned a lot, you know, and we've learned a lot together throughout. And he always asks me questions, because I do a lot of the taxidermy. So I'm chopping animals up and, you know, skinning the heads out and stuff like that. So he'll ask me, you know, well, what do I do here? So I'll tell him, you know, you feel for that joint or whatever, and you just kind of take that
at it.
knife and pop in there. Now and that's the thing, have sharp knives.
Okay.
You have to have a sharp knife.
That sounds like a common sense thing, but this makes sense. Yeah.
Trust me, there's a lot of people who go out there, dude, and they'll take a serrated blade, and you're like, what are you going to do with that?
I'm cutting bread. What's wrong with you?
Right. So having that sharp knife is one of the key things to disassembling your animal. So whenever I go, I have probably like 3 knives. I have one, what I use for skinning, and that has interchangeable blades, the scalpel blades.
Damn.
And every time I use that knife, I cut myself. Every single time. It's a given. I'm going to cut myself.
Do you feel like that's like a karma thing?
I don't know what it is, man.
Nature biting back.
It must be, because every single time, man, I always cut myself. And then I have my fixed blades, and I use my fixed blades to disassemble the animal.
Okay.
And I do that because when you're pushing onto the bone to skin, to basically cut that chunk of meat off, you want as much as possible. And with those flimsy scalpel blades, to skin, if it breaks, now you got a blade in your meat.
Or in your hand.
Right. Exactly.
Not be good.
And so you're like, okay, I got to get rid of that. So I just use that solid blade for.
So tangenting just a tiny bit. Well, I guess before I do that, I'm trying to go through these. I'm sorry, guys. I know this will be a long one, but I hope you guys are learning on this. So how much of this could I learn through hunter safety? That's not like what you learn in hunter safety.
You're not going to learn anything of really taking care of or disassembling an animal.
That's more like don't shoot yourself, don't shoot your buddy.
Exactly. Know where the barrel is, know the parts of a gun.
Okay.
So on and so forth.
Okay.
All the ethical hunting tips and stuff.
And then they teach you about like licensing and how this process we're about to get into works, like how to sign up and stuff like that. Okay.
I to be honest, I don't know if they actually teach you on how to do it. It's just
they point you in that direction
and get after it.
Yeah.
It's all online.
So, but for somebody that like me, a newbie that doesn't have a Brian in their life, would you say that that's the first place you would say that somebody could start if they were a city boy, they wanted to try this shit out?
I highly recommend go and get your hunter safety. If you want to hunt and you don't really know much about it or anything, get your hunter safety. And it doesn't matter how old you are. New Mexico actually has a new process now. So if you're 11 years old and older, you could take your entire hunter safety online.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you pay a fee. The only time you have to pay this fee is when you pass. So you could take it time and time and time again.
It's kind of cheating, but I got you.
So if you're younger than 11, then you have to go in and take the class.
Oh, okay.
And they teach you. So the little kids are learning. And you could be however old, as long as you're able to understand and pass the test, then you could take the...
So my 8-year-old, because he was super curious about this whole process, I thought that was a cutoff was 11, so he could get in there.
He could get his hunter safety, but from my understanding, is you have to be 11 years old to hunt. Okay. Some of the things I'm kind of racking my brain. I'm like, okay, I don't get this.
Sure.
If you pass your hunter safety, does that mean you're eligible to hunt? Or do you have to be 11? Because you're getting these conflicting answers, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not too sure.
So for you guys listening, there's going to be a lot of me basically trying to like talk about how you get into this officially or correctly with licensing and stamps. www.wildlife.state.nm.us and then it says /education/hunter-education. Or just go to the wildlife.state.nm.us. And I'm imagining that that's also where we're going to get, it looks like it's got the safety course, laws and regulations. That's where I think we're going to sign up for the license.
Yeah, on the website, it has everything. If you have a question or whatever, you just get on their website. Every time I Google it, I just type in New Mexico Game and Fish and it pops up.
Okay. And then I guess just lastly, when it came to you talking about butchering out, it came to me about talking about the zombie deer disease.
And the zombie deer, the chronic wasting disease.
Chronic wasting disease. Okay, so the Nuge, Ted Nugent and Joe Rogan, they talked about this. Then I've seen it hit the news quite a bit. I've even heard people in New Mexico contracting this. Do I have that wrong? Can humans get it?
As from what I've read and research and all that, what people have done is humans cannot get it.
Okay.
It's within the animals. Now, it's not proven, and a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to eat that animal. Well, you don't know if it has it.
Right. That's what I was going to say. So you're butchering this animal out. Is there something you can tangibly see on the animal that shows you that it's got this disease? No.
The only way you could actually tell if you see one in the wild is that's not a deer. No, just kidding.
Goes after your brains and shit.
Right. They lose it. They lose their balance.
Okay.
You know, so they're constantly stumbling. They're running into things, stuff like that.
It's not like rabies, like aggressive.
Yeah, they don't grow fangs and start coming at you saying "feed me" or anything like
Shy
that.
from the sun, any of that.
Right. So they lose their balance. It's, you know, and they start falling over. They start losing weight because they forget that they need to eat. You know, it attacks that brainstem and kind of jacks them up. So
okay, but that's the only. Besides that, and then you said with the bears, they have the trans.
No, not trans.
No.
Triagnosys.
Triagnosys.
It took me a while there. I was like, what was the name of it?
So those are the two like prevailing things that
all carnivore, like bear, cougar, coyotes, everything was going to eat any type of other animals or dead animals.
Yeah,
are going to have that triagnosis.
I can't look at my phone. It's way on the other side. What do you got? Just write me right there. Write me where you're at. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that I wanted to know was really just processing the animals, and for somebody that might go out there and kind of be a new person, like you can't really fuck that up. You just need to know how to process the animal out, bring it back. Do you take it to a butcher? I guess that would be
pretty much.
Question.
There's a lot of people. If you don't know what you're doing, a lot of people they gut the animal, they throw it in the bed of their truck, they drive into town, and they fill the cavity of the animal with ice.
Okay.
The minute you do that, it starts cooling the meat down. And then they just drive it in and get it to a butcher and get it processed. So
the butcher is going to know, I mean, and I'm just I guess being scared for no reason, but would a butcher know like this meat's fucked up? You can't. Okay.
They'll know.
So there's nothing that you could do. There's nothing that could come from nature that makes that meat bad. So you shoot this thing, you're all excited, you tear it open, and you get gathering that meat. It's really on you to preserve that meat, to get it to the butcher, and the disease could not ruin that for you unless.
No, you can't see it.
Okay.
You know, you're
that's
like,
what I was curious about.
Yeah. Now there's pictures and stuff like that and videos of people getting, you know, they'll hit like a tumor within like the meat when they're cutting them open and stuff like that, or skinning them, and it's infected. It's full of that pus, you know. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to eat that." It's a wound with that animal, okay. Yeah. And it's their natural way of healing, you know. And they just shot it before it was completely healed.
They don't
now, a lot of people just either throw that hind quarter away or process the rest of it. Excuse me.
I think for me that pretty much sums it up, because this is my plan, right? I want to sign up. We're gonna do that right now. I'm gonna put in for a hunt. Let's say that I draw for a elk or a deer. I grab this bad boy. Me and you go and get this thing processed. I want to take it to the butcher, and I feel like, you know, at a very 30,000 foot level, like I kind of have an idea now of how that would work. You know what I mean? So essentially, you shoot it, you strip it, you take it back.
And that's the thing. Just don't get your hopes up too high, because
you're going
to harvest an animal.
Okay.
Because you're not guaranteed.
Okay.
You know, if you start looking into the harvest, you know, reports and stuff like that on how many licenses they gave to how many people filled, it's like 20%,
right?
30%, you know, depending on the unit.
That's interesting. So, okay. So there's a high failure rate, I guess, or high not.
There is, but there's also a lot of times that people just go out to party.
Oh, okay. So a lot of it's like it's
a guy time, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what I've always heard about. People are like, I'm addicted after the first time they go. That's what my buddy Jared always talks about. He's like, I went once and I was hooked, and he wasn't even there to hunt. He was with somebody that had a tag.
It's fun.
It's a good time.
I love it, and I tell my wife every year that I'm going hunting. We fight about it every year. Yeah, it's a duke out fight.
Great, man. You're giving me more shit now. Sorry, babe.
Yeah. So she's gonna. Sorry, you might want to join.
Yeah, come on.
Put in.
No, well, I got me a new pack this year. Got me a new two-man tent.
Ooh, two-man.
Yeah.
See, so when you start moving up, you move up into the fifth wheel.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. See, I had the tents, and then get the family, and then we got the fifth wheel. And
right.
Yeah. But right now, it's like my fifth wheel sitting there. It's sitting on logs because my jacks broke.
Oh, shit.
So yeah, and it's full of that too.
Yeah.
Still, I haven't been able to move the camper. I'm like, oh crap, man, that's not going to be fun. But
let's see. Is it asking you put in for a cow if you just want the meat? Is it okay? So a question that's come up on the live feed: is it easier to get a cow than a bull? Ask if you should put in for a cow if you just want the meat.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it is easier to get a cow.
It is way easier, and It's better if you just want the meat and you're not worried about the antlers or anything like that. That bigger trophy. To me, every animal is a trophy, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
You know, because you just went out into the wild, into their natural environment, and took an animal.
It's the most manly, it's a primitive trophy thing you can do.
Right. Yeah. So any animal's a trophy in my book. So meat, just meat only. The cow hunting is by far, the meat's better than a bull.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's tender. It doesn't have that game taste to it.
Sure.
And they're easier to hunt.
Okay.
You know, there's so many of them. So if you just want meat, I highly recommend just put in for a cow hunt.
And even with a cow, like a full-size cow, how much meat you think you get? 200-300 pounds?
Oh, easy.
Oh, wow.
Easy.
That's awesome. So there you go, Jared. That answers your question. If you guys have any more questions while we're getting closer to, I think we're going to do this sign up. You want to do the sign up thing?
There's units out there for elk, what are New Mexico residents only.
Okay.
And they're cow hunts only.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
And that's all stuff we'll be able to talk about. And it depends on what you want to put in for. Now you have your first choice, second choice, third choice. Okay. You can do fourth, fifth choice. All that.
We're going to start. Do you want to start doing it?
Yeah, whatever.
Let's do it.
If you're ready.
So we're going to put in for, we're going to sign me up and put in for my first hunt put in. What the fuck do I call it? First hunt draw?
First draw.
First draw.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first effort to draw, at least.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're on.
So first things first is you log into New Mexico Department of Game and Fish website.
Okay.
And then I kind of jumped the gun here, but let me go back. So when you go in and then you go into the the login status here. So it kind of pops up, you know,
this is not definitive, so you guys can look this shit up yourselves. But
yeah. So if you're brand new to it, you want to click on create an account, and then it's terms of conditions, you know, do you agree or not agree? Of course you agree, or else you're not going to be able to continue.
Right. I'd like to hunt.
And then
do you want to swap me mics?
Personal information. This is where I got to hand it over to Morgan and let him type in all his info.
All my tomfoolery. Here, I can do this in my lap. I play with computers all day. Oh, yeah, I can do it right there. Okay, perfect. Cool. So essentially, I'm just being asked for first name.
Follow the directions.
Yeah, first name, last name. And this will only take me just a second. Because unlike some of y'all, I can type. I'll tell you what. So another question that was asked of me, cow or either sex hunt. So do they have, I guess this year, I think you were saying something about this. Now they have either sex hunts where it's not just.
Okay. So I get what you're saying. Either sex is either you could, this is for elk only.
Okay.
And you could shoot a bull or a cow. Okay. And then they have mature, in the rules and regs, it says MB, mature bull. And then they have an A for antlerless, meaning a cow.
Okay.
So an either sex hunt, a lot of bow hunts are either sex. Pretty much all bow hunts are either sex. Now there are certain units out there would change their rifle and muzzleloader hunts to an either sex, meaning you could shoot any one elk.
Okay.
You know, and that's by definition, the ES either sex means any one elk.
Oh, wow.
That's all.
So I mean, essentially it just depends on what you want to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you know, there's some hunts out there, you know, you're like, okay, either sex, I'm going after a bull.
Okay.
You know, and when it comes down to, you know, the last day or the last couple of days, and you're like, I'm not seeing no bulls, I'm just seeing cows, then you shoot yourself a cow. Just to be able to get that meat.
That's I think what I should do, because I feel like I don't know. But you're the guy here, so I
Well, it's whatever you want. I mean, I don't want to push you into something, you know, and is that what you want to put in for is elk? Or are you going to put in for multiple?
I want to. Yeah, I think an elk would be the way to
because you got till the 20th of this month is the deadline. So March 20th at 5 p.m. is the shutoff.
Okay.
And then you're done. No more applies.
So I'm going to. So it says that I already have an account. Cool. So this might take a little longer than I wanted to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the podcast recording, and you guys will come back online once I've gotten a little bit further on this. But we're still going to stay Facebook Live, so you guys can see us on there. And I apologize for the delay, but I mean, this is part of it, like I said. So see you on the other side. I know what I'm doing sometimes. So I had some computer malfunctions. It was just deciding to not want to work. So it's just an account thing. I don't know what the flip-flapping idea is with them telling me I have an account, but then I can't reset my stuff, so I'll get that figured out. But Brian brought up an excellent point, so did my buddy J-Rod. Essentially, if you guys are going to sign up in the state of New Mexico, it's a great idea to sign up for all the things that you plan on doing, at least for summer. It's March. You got... It's March, yeah. You got the summer months coming up, so fishing license would be an excellent thing to get. Yep. So if I was to have put in for an elk, what else would it be that I would want to grab while I'm in there? Is there more?
So before you can even apply for any big game hunts, you have to purchase your New Mexico game hunting license, which is a small game tag.
Okay.
So you have to purchase that. And then you have your habitat stamp and your validation, which is additional $9, get your fishing license. You could get your second rod, just whatever you plan on doing, get it all right away.
All at once.
And
yeah.
That way it's just one smack in the face with the money.
So let's say that it's in the reverse. If I'm out there and I don't have my fishing license and I get walked up on, like, what's a fee for something like that?
It could be like $100.
Whew. Now, what if I bag a deer? I'm poaching by definition. What does that cost?
Well,
me?
that is jail time. It could be thousands of dollars.
Okay.
Possible jail time. It all depends. And so, yeah, just don't do it.
So the $150, $200 that you'd be spending otherwise is totally worth it rather than sitting in jail. Okay. Yeah. And then do you ever see any of that? Have you ever seen people out there poaching, being dumbasses?
I have not seen people poach. I've actually come across animals what have been poached.
Okay.
And it's sickening. I can't stand it. Last year on my elk hunt, I came across 5 dead cow elk.
Really?
And
they just blasted them and left them there?
I don't know what it was. There was a cow hunt before. So 2 of them were obviously shot, and one of them was off the main road. One of them was off a 2-track. And I mean, just right there. So those ones, you're kind of like, well, yeah, you could have easily have got those. So those ones were probably poached.
Yeah.
The other ones were further into off the trails and stuff like that. So those ones were probably shot and just never located.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But
so you never know.
I had them all marked, and I sent the coordinates to Game and Fish and pictures and everything. So the game warden contacted me, and we sat there and talked on the phone, and he was asking me for pictures. I was like, I got everything.
Yeah.
So I sent it to him. He said thank you, and he went out to investigate. So I never heard anything else about it.
I wonder I wonder how often it's happening compared to what you've seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it happens so much more. And that's the thing. I mean, I've seen, and that's when you could tell that it was an obvious poach. Is you'll see an elk or whatever, and you could see where they just cut the rack right off.
Wow.
And
that's all they're going for? I mean, that's sad.
For.
That's like Africa poaching,
yeah.
Where they just go
and
for
you're
the
like,
horn or
you're just
like
going for that. You're like, all that meat is just gone to waste.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's stupid.
That was one of the places I wanted to go before we ended the podcast, but I'm going to answer one more question I got. So, see if this makes sense to you. Talk about how the hunting license keys you hunt doves and small game versus the draw to hunt big game. Talk about hunting license keys you hunt.
So, okay. Well, the small game, that's what I say. The small game allows you to hunt dove.
Okay.
So
you have to have a license to do that?
You have to have a license to hunt dove. You have to have a license to hunt quail. That small game license allows you the ability to be able to hunt all small game.
Huh.
So, which is dove, quail, squirrel. So there's all that type of stuff is what that small game license allows you. So when you apply, you're not just wasting your money. You're licensed to be able to go and hunt dove and quail and squirrel and,
So do people, and I don't know if you do this, but is there a practice where people go out and they plan on hunting, like they have like an elk tag, and then they also get small game, and then they also get like a different, well, I guess you'd have to draw for something else, because you don't have to draw for small game. You just buy it.
You buy your tag. So you have that. So you draw elk.
Okay.
Let's say, Me, I hunt elk in September. I bow hunt. So if I draw my elk tag, I always purchase a turkey tag as well.
Oh, okay.
So I could hunt turkey with my bow for the fall turkey.
So you don't, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but you don't have to draw for something like turkey or small game. It's only turkey, the big game is what you're drawing for.
You don't have to draw. I mean, there is draw units out there.
Okay.
But other than that, they're just buy over the counter.
Okay. And by draw, what we're saying is it's like a lottery system, because when I was going to put in right now and going to put in, I'm putting my number in a hat, and I'm one of, let's say, 100 people trying to get a unit, right? And an automated system, they say, will actually grab me and 5 other people or something.
I like how you said 100.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many people.
It's actually thousands. But
is it really? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
We had a record amount of people put in last year.
That's cool.
And it was a lot.
Damn.
But when you start looking in the stats, and I mean, that's way in there, but you'll be like, okay, they give out 175 tags for this first hunt. Mm-hmm. There's 2,342 people who put in. Damn. For 150 tags.
Sure. And the only thing that would push you to the top of that pile is you've never drawn. And then is your age, or none of that affects it?
None of that affects it. It's
really?
All lottery.
That's good to know.
So the way you put in, from my understanding, what we've talked to Game and Fish, we've talked to people with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation who are well versed in the rules and regs.
Yeah.
In every state. But you apply, it goes into a computer system. The computer basically stamps like a number on it.
Okay.
And then it throws it into this other. So you could apply and it might stamp number 1. So now you're number 1 in the order of 250,000 people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it just stamps the number, and then it just goes through and starts.
That reminds me, so I used to work at a casino, and essentially I didn't realize this till I worked there, that even the slot machines, all of that stuff is overseen by the gaming division, which is state, but also federally sanctioned. So even though you'd be like in New Mexico, a Native American casino, you would have the section of the casino that's controlled by the tribe. And then, and then there's usually an entity, a building across the street where they oversee this pipeline of data that goes to the actual gaming side of it. So I'm guessing it works the same, because when you pull your little arm down on a slot machine, there's a constant spinning number, and you're just catching this sequence of numbers, and it's all done by an algorithm, supposedly, like just random numbers constantly going, and the computers control all of it. Supposedly no humans touch any of it. Yeah. So I'm guessing there's a similar system for the hunting. Yeah. That's like the idea, the lottery.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not some guy in the back with the little balls and the air bubbler thing, like the old school. I cut you off, and I apologize.
Yeah, so it's all good. So anyways, last year hunting deer in September as well, I had my deer tag, and then I bought a bear tag.
Okay.
So I had the 2. Now, certain units, if I'm hunting elk, I'll buy a bear tag and I'll buy a turkey tag. So I'm actually hunting 3.
Yeah.
And then if it's squirrel season in there, I can hunt 4.
Right.
4 different animals. And then if there's dove over there, that's 5.
That's cool.
5 different species, all in September, what I'm able to hunt.
Sure.
Now, certain units, during the bow season, you can only shoot with a bow, like turkey. Okay. I can't carry my shotgun, see a turkey, and then shoot it with a shotgun. I have to use my bow.
So you can carry both, though?
No. Not, well, it's certain units.
Okay. I see.
And it's all in the rules and regs. It clarifies, what you can use, so on and so forth.
Damn it, I wish I could have got into that.
Like a lot of units in September, it's bow only, meaning bow only.
Okay.
Now, once October hits, and it's rifle, now you could, you're out there and you can have your shotgun, you can have your 30-06 or whatever, your rifle.
So you could have like an armory on you in certain areas.
Yeah, and you could, like, and that's the thing with New Mexico, you could hunt. And then also if you're hunting cougar,
okay,
you could have yourself a lion tag, right? I forgot that one. So technically there's 6 animals right there.
Wow.
You could hunt.
How much would a batch of that cost, roughly? Shoot, ballpark me. Like, what would I have paid if I bought 6 licenses right now?
About $800.
Ooh. Now, if I wanted one animal, what's a typical? Let's say I'll go for just an elk. Ballpark.
Elk, I want to say, is $90.
Okay. So if you wanted to stack a couple and just try it for your first time out, you might spend couple bills.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
that's for applying.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't forget about everything else what entails. You
Sure.
know, food, travel, all that kind of
ammo,
stuff.
weapon.
Yeah. And sighting in, you got to do all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
But, so it actually all builds up, and you could easily spend a good $2,000, on your season if you don't have anything.
Sure. I mean, if you're going, because like I'm going to borrow my mother-in-law's rifle, and we're going to go out and practice. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to keep it cheap as dirt. But
you said your mother-in-law's rifle.
Mother-in-law's. Yeah. She's in a lot of cases she's more manly than I am. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's a flatbed truck driver.
Hey,
I got mad
and all you
respect
got to
for
do is
Mary.
buy a couple boxes of rounds, go out to the range, shoot the distances, know your rifle.
Okay.
Know where it's hitting at certain yardages.
Okay.
Because something's 300 yards away, but you're sighted in at 100. Do you know where to hold at 300? Do you know the drop of your bullet at 300?
Sure.
Or 400, That
reminds me of like the medieval castles when they would sight out when they're advancing. Yeah. They'd come in at like 300 yards, fire, they know exactly.
They know exactly, right.
Sort of the same. Not really. Yeah. Okay, I want to get back to, so the last stuff that I wanted to talk to you about, and it's really not, see, blah, 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 from outdoor fire. Okay. So how often do you hunt in a year? You just go for the one big shot, but could you hunt? I mean, sounds like you can hunt almost all year.
You could, actually you can hunt all year.
Okay.
There's certain animals out there you could buy an over-the-counter tag, and you could hunt them all year long until you fill your tag.
Wow.
Let's say like the Barbary sheep. You could, like right now, if you bought a tag right now, it will expire March 31st. Okay. Because the new license year starts. So come April 1st, you go buy yourself that Barbary sheep tag. It's $103 or it's over $100.
Okay.
But you buy that, you can hunt whenever the heck you want, going all the way until March 31st of next year, until you fill your tag.
That's cool. Okay. Now I noticed the Barbary sheep one was like very expensive.
For non-resident?
Yeah, non-resident was like $1,200, and
it's $110 for Barbary.
For a resident. Okay.
For a resident.
Okay, is that just good meat, or it's just that there's so few of them that they want to?
I've never had it. I heard that it's pretty good, but
I'd make like a jacket out of it. I'd do all kinds of shit. I'd pay $160.
Those things, those rams. If you're able to get yourself a ram, it's just the way they look. They're beautiful.
Is that one there?
That's a Barbary.
That's cool.
A U. I call them an ooh. I don't know why, but it's a U.
See if you can point it at the camera.
It's a
female.
I don't
know how well they'll be able to see it, but
that's the female. I don't know.
That's cool.
But those things they're just beautiful, and as you can see, it's an over-the-counter license.
Okay.
There are draw units out there.
Okay.
In which you can only hunt those units, for the draw.
So that was one of the questions he asked. Over the counter, can you talk about like what does that mean compared to
over the counter? Meaning they don't have a license limit.
Oh, okay.
So anybody could just go over there and buy a license, and they'll sell, thousands of them.
Wow.
It's unlimited. So it's just meaning you don't have to apply online,
go through the lottery,
and go for the draw system.
Okay.
It means you could go down to Walmart and you could just purchase your license.
Damn.
Bear.
Even Sam Walton's getting in.
Cougar. Now on cougar or mountain lion, whatever you want to call them.
All the above.
All of the above. You have to take a test that, to know what a female and a male, know your difference. Because a lot of people, if you just start going out there and killing them, it's going to wipe out the population.
Sure.
Ethical hunters, in which that's the whole thing. Like a lot of people think that we don't do this kind of stuff, but it proves to you right here, they catch a female or they tree a female. Yeah, you can shoot it, but a lot of people let them go.
Because you want that to produce more.
You want them to produce more.
That makes a lot of sense.
You don't want to wipe them out. It's just like trapping. A lot of people, they'll trap like the bobcats and stuff like that. If it's a female, they release the females.
Okay.
And they'll take out the males. One male could breed all of them.
Sure.
So that's their whole key. So if there's too many males, there's so it's all the way
it's thought out. It's science backed. It's not just it's not just some guy going out there like you're
just wiping them out.
Yeah.
Now, and like with the Barbary, they have a lot of the over the counter. There's certain areas. They're not throughout the whole entire state.
Sure.
And some areas, they really want them out of there because they're introducing the bighorn sheep into that unit. And I guess they don't do good together.
Okay.
Because I was asking, well, why
It's
are
like
you guys
fish in
trying
an
to
aquarium that don't get along?
eliminate them?
Sure.
Right. And they're like, well, it's the sheep, I guess, the barberry and the bighorn, when they're like, yeah, they're so sensitive, the bighorn sheep, that the barberry go over there, rub up against it and get it sick, and then it die.
Damn.
So they're like, let's wipe them out. And you're like, well, why would you want to wipe them out? Just don't put the rams there.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's good country, and they could thrive over there.
I see what you're saying.
You know, and there's so much, you know.
Is there a unit? It's my last New Mexico question. Is there a unit in New Mexico that puts out bigger game than not? Like, is there one that cats are constantly pointing at to draw for? Is there like an area? I heard Via Vidal.
That's a very good unit.
Okay. Why is that
Vias
better?
Vidal, there's the Vias Caldera. It's a sanctuary. They barely have any tags what are available. There's a ton of game in there. So they get big. You know, they're safe.
Right.
You know,
and they probably snap to that because they know that they're not hunted as often. They stay in those safer areas.
There is hunting in there, but not as much. There, you don't have 400 people, you know, every month in there.
Yeah.
You know, you might have 10 people, 15 people, you know, and that's it. But so those areas are very good. They're very hard to draw. Because they 25 tags, I think, is the highest amount they give to those units.
Okay.
A lot of people head out. I'm just going to say the Gila. The Gila's big, so I'm not going to give a unit.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't like to give units out.
See that?
But they're monsters. There's been trophy and record bulls come out of there. Now that's the thing, though. Every unit holds a record. They're out there.
Sure.
They're throughout the whole entire state.
It's kind of a chance thing alongside it because they move around. They
it's
don't
all
just
luck.
stay put. Okay.
It's all luck.
Okay.
The way, I mean, you could be the great white hunter, the biggest, baddest dude out there, but if they're not there, they're not there. Right.
Well, I watched before I came up. I watched Cameron Haynes. I don't know if you're savvy on him. He's a super good bow hunter.
Yeah.
Ultra runner as well, which I'm like, yeah. He's on Joe Rogan's podcast a lot, but he's a bow hunter mostly by trade. And he went out to Utah and nailed an elk that was like a 12 pointer and just this behemoth. And he had hit it, and it took him 2 arrows. And it was insane to watch him just clip this thing twice and just clean its house. I mean, just dropped it, you know.
Yeah.
But I was blown away by that, and I wondered if that, you know, is something that is specific to that state, or is that you know. So that makes sense that it's kind of just a toss up of nature. That
and a lot of things. So bulls are scored like a 400 is world class. It's huge.
What is that system? What is this number? 400.
Scoring the antlers.
Oh, okay.
Like that big guy there, he scored a 357 and some change, but with deductions, it comes out to an even 350. That's a big bull. So a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, I want myself a 380. I want a 390. You know, in reality, your chances of coming across
I'm going to show you
like
guys this because I feel like it's
not
applicable. Keep talking about it.
But yeah, he's going to move the camera over there. So those 300 class to 330 class bulls, they're still good sized bulls. You know, and you having yourself a 400 class, if that's a 350, add 50 more inches to that, and it's going to be ginormous. You know, people don't understand the size difference. You know, when you start learning and scoring antlers, it's going to change everything.
When you start to see. That's like you're going to go out there, and that's where you're trophy hunting because you're looking at, damn, it's got a big old rack. I can see how that becomes kind of a game.
When I shot him, he was 20 yards from me.
Okay.
I had no idea he was that big. Damn. Because I wasn't looking at the. I knew he was a bull, and he was right there, and I just let the arrow fly and shot him.
That's badass.
You know, and you're just like, until you walk up and you're like, holy shit, this dude's big.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't know on how big he was until I brought him home and I scored him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just measuring the tine lengths, each point, you know, so on and so forth, and then you just tally it up. And there's a whole system online where you could follow through the Pope and Young or, you know, the SCI. They have
it's
all
like
that.
An official
official scoring sheet. You know? So, but I mean, in New Mexico, in reality, a bull with more or less what you're going to be looking at is a 350 as the top. There are those 380s out there, but they're rare, and so on and so forth. But more or less, it's going to be that 330 class range.
Sure.
Of bull what you're going to expect. And a lot of people go out and they're like, oh no, this is what I want. And then all of a sudden they go and they see that bull and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to shoot him. And you're like, well, shoot him. It's up to you. You know, it's your tag. It's like my buddy on his antelope hunt. He had that buck antelope tag and we came across a couple antelope. He's all, should I shoot? I was like, well, it's your tag. It's a boom. And he shot before I could even finish. I was like, well, there you go. I guess that's your buck.
Squared away.
Yeah.
That's cool. I've learned like a million things, dude.
Dude, I could go on forever.
No, yeah. I mean, we've almost cleared 2 hours, if you believe it.
Oh shit!
But
that's a long podcast.
Yeah, it's actually going to be my longest, I think. So I guess the last thing that I was going to ask you about. So, do you personally ever travel out of state to go hunting? Do you ever do that?
I have. I've hunted in Colorado. Obviously, my very first deer was from Colorado. I've been wanting to do Colorado again. I just never have the extra finances to go.
Yeah.
I've hunted Wyoming a couple times, and we've been looking into hunting Wyoming again for deer and antelope.
So what is it? It's not Iowa. It's one of those northeastern states. There's one of the northern states where it's real big. People are going there all the time. I guess they're all kind of good once you get above a certain area because there's more forest and more food, right? I mean, why that state for you?
I don't know. I've hunted Wyoming before. They have big animals.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to. Because I can hunt deer and antelope down here.
Yeah.
But they have some big ones. They got big bucks. They got big antelope.
They got them big boys.
And that's what there's so many antelope out there. They said that there's more antelope than people.
That's huge.
But you have a small percentage of people who want to live in Wyoming.
Right.
But when you go to Wyoming and you see all that game out there, you're just like, oh my gosh. And there's some big deer.
It's a hunter's paradise.
Yeah.
That's
you're
cool.
like, dude, there's free. And they're big. And that's why we chose. And Colorado has big deer.
Okay.
And I have buddies who go hunt and they apply every single year. And I just haven't had the extra finances to go over there.
Yeah.
Because I think Colorado non-resident is like $450 or something like that. Just for the license.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got to get out there and all that other stuff. So
right.
it ends up costing.
Yeah. Well, an out-of-stater, because I saw the price difference here with our book. If you're an out-of-stater, you're paying like triple the cost that a resident would.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then what's a dream? I might have said that as the specific verbiage, but would you hunt a place that's created for hunters like New Zealand or something like that?
Dude, yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to go out there. New Zealand, they have those, like the red stags and stuff like that. It's like an elk, but it's different.
Okay.
Their antlers are the same. They kind of like, I don't know, they kind of like sprawl out up at the peak of it. Like ours, they have that whale tail.
Okay.
They just have a whole bunch of them, kind of like chandelier type.
Like a moose almost?
No, not palmated.
Okay.
So they come out like a basket with a whole bunch of points. And they're just the coolest animals. You're like, oh my gosh, Yeah. And I want to go to Spain. I want to hunt stag in Spain. I want to hunt their Ibex.
Okay.
And it's just, I would love to go out of the country.
Out of the country, just to try it.
Yeah. Even Alaska or Canada, just to be able to, I say Alaska, I'm like, wait a minute.
It's kind of the same.
It's kind of the same, but
you're in the same area.
Canada's right there, and it's a different country, but the moose, they have the caribou, all that kind of stuff.
There's a running joke with my friends and my wife, because I saw an elk on the side of the road in Jemez. I was like, it's a moose. It's a moose. I swear. So now every time that I see one, it's, of course, did you see a moose, Morgan? Yeah, you fuckers.
Hey, it could have been a moose. There's been moose spotted in New Mexico.
Right? And I'm going to bring a grizzly and a moose down here just to show all y'all. So outside of that, what's your opinion on hunting the super exotics? This is kind of a debatable hot topic, but like you see on Facebook, and I think with the advent of social media, this is a big deal.
You mean like the super exotics?
We're going for giraffes. We're going for lions. We're going for shit like that. Now I hear, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, I hear that the way it works is that these tribes will typically allow a hunter to come and pay an exorbitant amount of money to support the community by hunting an old lion or an old giraffe or an injured one or a violent one.
That is correct.
Okay. And I mean, what is your opinion on it altogether as well?
There's certain things I disagree on hunting, you know, like in reality, why do you want to shoot a giraffe?
Right. There's almost not a scenario that sounds like a good idea.
Now, I would actually be more for hunting a giraffe as in like scientific purposes.
Okay.
Tranquilize it, take it down, take pictures. They do their test
tagging and shit like that.
Tagging, and then boom, gone. Why not?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? I think that would be awesome.
Right.
I would love to do that. I would shoot everything if I could do that. Now,
shoot it with tranquilizer. You heard?
Yeah,
tranquilizer.
And it's just for science,
right?
You know, everything's for science,
right? Well,
but a lion, I would shoot a lion.
Okay,
I would. Now, like you're absolutely right. I have buddies who have gone out there to Africa and hunt, and all of the meat, you can't bring any of it back home.
Right.
So all that meat goes to the locals and the tribes and so on and so forth. And
so you're just there for the pictures, the trophy,
and that's it.
Sure. Maybe like a tooth or something.
He said when he's there at camp, he shoots an animal. They process the animal. You eat that animal that night.
Wow.
So you sit there, eat. Everybody eats it, and it goes to the tribe.
But they're not just selling off every lion that they get.
No.
Okay.
No.
So there has to be a kind of a reason or process.
Exactly. And a lot of it is they have that overpopulation, or they have that trouble lion, and they're like, yeah, we have this lion, we need to get rid of it.
So same concept as we got coyotes here. They get a little out of hand. We need to start backing them off, or else you're going to lose all of your game herbivores. Yeah. Okay. So, and I don't know if I'm talking out of my ass with this, but what about fence hunting? Like, where they basically, because I've seen in the same...
The high fence?
Yeah, the high fence hunting, and I've heard that that's a practice here in the U.S. as well.
Yes,
but
it is.
I know that that's something that people find to be controversial. So what's your take on that, and why do they do that, I guess?
You could hunt all the exotic animals you want. Instead of going to Africa, you just go to Texas.
Sure.
They have them all.
Yeah, they say that there's more tigers there than anywhere else in the world.
You name it, they have it out there in Texas. And a lot of it's high fence. Some of them are free roaming, free range and stuff like that. There's high fence hunting here in New Mexico.
But it's like private, right?
It's all privately owned.
Okay.
And you're paying high dollar to go in there. But it's a lot of people frown upon it. But if somebody wants to do that and pay, it's just like hunting on a ranch. You're paying to go hunt on a ranch. It's just not high fence. It's free roam.
Right.
Or free range. I don't really see that big of an issue with it. Somebody's out there raising these animals and somebody's willing to pay to take that animal.
So it's kind of like pets.
Yeah.
Like it kind of lets
it's not really a hunt.
Right.
Now, it's not a hunt. You're going out there and you're like, shoot that one.
Yeah.
And then you shoot it and you're, it's like shooting it in your backyard. But I don't have nothing against it.
Right. I mean, in the same breath, does it appeal to you as a hunt, like a kind of a seasoned hunter? Does that sound interesting to you to not have to work to get after that meat? Okay.
No, I would rather work for my meat.
Yeah.
And because it means more to me. But like, I want to shoot a buffalo.
Okay. I was going to ask you that too. Cool.
I would love to hunt a buffalo. And I think those things are they're amazing. They're huge. The meat is phenomenal.
Okay.
They're huge. You could get a ton of meat.
Yeah.
Now you're going to pay a couple grand.
Wow.
But you could go out there and go onto this ranch and you pay, and you could pay $2,000 and have to go hunt them on the ranch, but they're on a ranch.
Right.
They're
only going to go so far.
They're only going to go so far.
Sure.
You're absolutely right. Or you could pay less, from what I understand, and they drive you to a pin and they say, shoot that one because it's the old female.
Right. Okay.
What they need to get out of the herd.
Sure.
So they sell it. They're selling you this animal. It's just like buying cattle.
Yeah.
But you're shooting it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And much higher yield of meat as well than you would a cow, I would think. What's your opinion on helicopter hunting? I know that it's done in certain places. Yeah, because that's like mainly what it's done for, right? Is pigs. Like they'll let you go up and...
They do. Yeah. That would be so fun. I would love to do that. Those feral hogs are devastating habitat.
Okay.
They're not just an animal that's going over there and just... They root up the ground and they destroy the land. Yeah. They're destroying the land, which is therefore affecting... all other species out there.
It's kind of fucking up the food chain.
Exactly.
Sure.
So that's why feral hogs they're horrible, and they eradicate them like crazy, in Texas and stuff like that. So if I had the opportunity to be able to shoot feral hogs out of a helicopter, I would not turn it down.
Right. And in Texas, I think the gun laws are even more lax, right, than like anywhere else. So you could probably use a machine gun.
Yeah. And I've watched video of them, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that would be a blast. Yeah. And I know somebody was offering actually a pig hunt out of a helicopter.
Okay.
And it was pricey, but it's going to be. You got to pay for the helicopter
fuel,
and the fuel
pilot.
and all that. So you're like, oh yeah, that's going to be. If I had the money. Yeah. Dude, I would do that in a
There's
heartbeat.
some cat, and I don't. Maybe one of you guys listening will know, but there's some cat in Berlin that I went into his house. I don't remember how I knew them, but dude's got mounts of heads of all kinds of exotics and stuff, and like his house was just like, decked with heads. It was. I don't even remember, but I remember that was one of the stories I heard him talking about. That was what he was going to go do, was actually go and do the helicopter stuff. And
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, he's got money was my point, so he's, he was like a rich guy, but it was interesting to see, like what part of that is a trophy to him, whereas with you're more about the hunt, whereas he's more about, I got this exotic, or I got, I'm sure he doesn't really care how he gets the animal, as long as he pulls the trigger, essentially,
right.
So
yeah,
it's interesting.
I would love to go to Africa and kill all these exotics, the sable, what is a sable?
You're such a nice guy to hear you say it like that.
The kudu, all these, because I've seen those animals. They're amazing. They're beautiful. Yeah. They're big. And you're just like, oh man,
what does he taste like?
Yeah. And I want one.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you go to Texas, you probably are paying more for the hunt in Texas, but you don't have to pay for the flight.
Right.
And so in reality,
you get like Giardia or something from water. You can probably skip out on those fun parts. So
your hunt's
going
to be cheaper in Texas than it is out there in Africa.
That makes sense. Okay.
And then you'll probably be able to take that meat all home.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have to leave it.
That's interesting, man. See, now you got me so intrigued. I'm going to be a hunting machine. All you animals out there, I'm coming for you. Okay, so that kind of answers my questions on that, man. I guess one of the things I was going to ask you about, so Onca Gear, ONCA. Talk to me about Onca Gear, because you're one of the pro staff for Onca Gear. What is that? How'd you get into that?
Onca Gear is at the high-end camo. We actually run their social media, and we run their pro staff. Okay. So we're the pro staff manager, head of pro staff, whatever you want to call it.
See, I told you guys he knows what he's talking about. So I was telling you.
So that camo is actually based out of Spain.
Okay.
Everything is made. They own their own textile company and all that. So it was a whole bunch of guys. They made police and fire uniforms, so on and so forth. And they came up with the technology for their rescue and stuff like that, which is water resistant, tear resistant, so on and so forth.
Similar to Gore-Tex.
Yeah. Okay. And it's the way it's all stitched, and it's quiet. It's nice. Well, these guys, they're hunters. Okay. So they're like, hey, let's go ahead and make ourselves some camo. Yeah. So they came up with this pattern and started that.
That's cool.
It was here in the States for a while, and right now they're kind of reamping their whole company. Okay. So they kind of backed out for right now, but they're in the process of bringing everything back. So they're in the process of a new headquarters here in the United States, so on and so forth. So that way they're able to get everything out to the customers more centrally located, in the States. So that way it's easier to distribute their gear to, the retailers and so on.
What does that mean for you? Does that mean you guys will?
As of right now, we're still good. We're not we're not accepting any more like pro staff members or anything like that, but everything's still up and running with them.
Got you. So they're still doing their stuff. Well, I guess what I was saying is
they're still doing it. They're really big in Spain.
Okay.
But I mean, with their social media, it's ran from us, but it's everywhere.
Right. It's worldwide. I mean, it's social media.
Worldwide.
Sure.
So we have those guys, one of the owners of Onca Gear, he sends us pictures, what he gets from clients and stuff like that, what he knows out there in Spain, and he'll send them to us, and then we post them on the website and stuff like that.
So I want you guys to look more. I love you, Onca Gear, but I want you guys to definitely support my boy here on his Spot2Stalk group. Jump into it if you guys want to learn some stuff. If you guys just want to get into this world, if you've never been in it. But Onca Gear is oncagear.com. It looks like.
Yes. ONCAGEAR.
Right, and then if they wanted to find the Onca, let me see, Onca Gear. I'm trying stupid ass. I need to go to Facebook first. My idea was to go to Facebook and give you guys the Onca Gear Facebook, unless you know it.
It's Onca Gear.
Is it just straight up? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's on what is it? Instagram. It's at Onca Gear.
Okay. Yeah, and that's ONCA Gear. Yeah. Okay, Onca Gear. You got it. Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff on there. There's a worldwide pictures. It looks like, and then it looks like there's some derivatives and Andorra. Looks like there's some different places. So that's super cool. And I was just curious. I wasn't really sure 100% what it was that.
Yeah. I mean the gear, it's phenomenal. I mean they have non-camel gear, and then the camel gear. They have the early season all the way to the late season, so the temperature ratings and stuff like that. And the rain gear is, I mean, it'll keeps you dry.
Okay.
It definitely keeps you dry.
So then last but not least, so we were talking about you have Spot2Stalk, which is Spot, the number 2 stock altogether. And it's that same name on Facebook and then Instagram, right?
Yes. And we also have a website. So Spot2Stalk.com.
Okay. Spot2Stalk.com.
And it has all links to our podcasts, our social media outlets.
There you go. So you guys definitely follow those guys, like their page, the whole bit.
Please do.
And then additionally, the podcast is on the Game Trail.
On the Game Trail.
Okay, and then you guys can find that iTunes, Google Podcasts. It's not Google Music anymore. It's Google Podcasts. Damn you, Google, making it more complicated. And then let's see. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to promote. So you're also an artist, man. So I know that's kind of your back pocket kind of stuff. Like you just, Amber told me a story about finding you in the pantry one time, whittling a piece of soap into a beautiful bear or something like that.
I would sit there and whittle soap and but yeah, I've progressed out of soap to logs now.
Yeah. So
I do some chainsaw carving.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, and I dabble in that a little bit. I do some work. I want to do more. It's just
it's not like you don't do 1,000 other things,
right?
You procrastinate my ass, man.
I do everything. I'm dabbling in everything. I got the taxidermy, I got the chainsaw carving, I got our hunting groups and stuff like that. And I shed hunt, I hunt, you name it, I try and get my hands in it and do it.
Well, I think, my point to that is if you wanted to promote it, are you taking like any consignment or anything like that?
Am I taking consignment or
what am I trying to, is that the wrong word? Like if somebody says, I want to make a turtle out of this log, are you open to taking orders for shit like that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. How can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah. I mean, I guess just through Facebook.
Okay. So
Facebook,
Brian,
or you could call me, whatever, but I really don't want to get my number out
there. No. So I would
so
think,
yeah, just go on, you could do, I think it's Chainsaw Carvings by Brian Gray. I have that,
or through the Spot2Stalk, I'm sure.
Yeah, you could do that. Through the Spot2Stalk, you could hit me up because I post stuff on our social media of some of my carvings. I do Insta stories and stuff like that. Or you could just hit me up on my Facebook, which is Brian Gray.
Right. Well, I'm going to show you guys. There's like those two there you made, right?
There's those there, and I have that flat work what's laying up.
Do you mind if once we cut off the cast? Do you mind if we show that on the Facebook Live before we cut off?
Yeah, because that piece, that flat work is it's an elk carving.
Okay.
And that one's actually for sale. So if you're listening and you want to buy it, hit me up.
There you go.
Because it's for sale. But
so, like I told you guys, a man of a million hats. And Brian, I'm super grateful for you doing this with me, man. It means the world because I've really wanted to do this literally since I was a boy. So this is huge, man. Especially once we get the fucking tagging or the draw process.
Once you get your stuff figured out, then you'll have to call me.
I'll put a success post out for you guys, let you know that it got done. And then hopefully we'll be able to do some sort of crisscrossing of the social media stuff when we actually do the hunt. That would be my plan. And I have actual gear for videotaping out in the videotaping, recording, I guess. Videotaping sounds like we're in 1985.
We could go with videotaping.
Sure, it works. But yeah, man, you got anything else for people listening that we missed?
No, not really. Just thank you. Make sure you guys follow and subscribe.
Yeah, exactly. Follow and subscribe. Both sides.
Of us.
All right, brother.
Hey, thank you, man.
All right, man.
Appreciate it.